is another word for that. I see the voter base as it exists.
Carl, could you hold one sec? It's Carlton, right? Carl, I'm going to go ahead and start the recording because I might as well record this. This is my practice show, and I might put it up on
That's fine.
A site called Politics of Success, so it probably won't be real long. So let me bring this up. So welcome to, this is like the test show between Meet the Voter at meetthevoter.com. We do it once a week. We're moving into Sunday evening. We're bringing and discuss Meet the Press. But what I want to do on Sunday mornings is come up for about an hour, talk about the process of getting elected, what people need to do. And if there's any candidates or people who are thinking about running, they might want to pop on this hour. So before I go on, we've got Carlton here, and I want to talk a little bit about my background. When I was in my 30s, I was very successful in my design build construction company. I'd spent 9 years in the military. About 4 or 5 years, a lot of people were coming to me, expect some high-end Republicans, and said that they would, this is from the oligarchy, would back me in a run against Gary Condit in full support targeted race. Well, I got into the race, and I put my all into it. My company was at the very peak, and I just won an award. I was 39 years old for the best custom home in the hills, so, and I'm building a couple of subdivisions. My company's doing well. So I got into this race. I put my all into it. And in the middle of the race, John Kasich, who was trying to negotiate a budget, pulled the campaign. So I didn't have that traditional support. And I kept on running as hard as I could. And John Kasich basically started supporting Gary Condit quietly and then telling donors to give him money. And they were Republicans. So when they made my own Republican primary from the Central Committee, there were prominent Republicans giving large donations to Gary Condit. And it wasn't that I was a bad guy. They just needed that vote to make sure that Gary Kasich passed the budget. So I learned a lot. That's how I broke my teeth. The next thing, I got elected to city council and vice mayor. And I started sort of watching politics to see who did get elected. We had a really good fact sheet on Gary Condit, and his votes weren't that good at the time. And he had some really bad things in his resume because he started city council's mayor of Ceres, assembly member in the state of California, and then Tony Coelho got in trouble, who was a minority leader, and he was basically ordained, and then they put me up against him. So it was an interesting race running against Blue Dogs, and I sort of got my teeth cut. That to do, what I'd like to do the next few weeks is start out, what does it take to run for office? And there's 3 things I want to talk about over the next few weeks. I think the most important is the why you'd want to run, because you're going to be asked that question. The second one was, I like to talk about, that low profile building up, but saving your money and not spending a lot of money. There's a lot of people, when you start running, consultants from all different directions are going to try to get into your bacon wagon and get the money out of the campaign. So you want to preserve money, and then going on how you want to spend your money and how you want to organize your campaign. So I do think you need a consultant on certain campaigns, but they have to be, you got to be very close. You don't want too many people too close to the candidate. Then you want a volunteer coordinator to make sure there's some distance, because as you see, you can get in trouble from those people who are closest to you in a campaign, can sort of mess up your campaign. So that's what I want to talk about the next few weeks. Hey, Carlton, we have Carlton up. Carlton had a good question. Why don't you start, Carlton, with that question again?
Yeah, sure thing, Bill. The question was just this: when running for an office, locally or at a national level, do candidates tend to, at least in the early parts of the campaign, is there a desire to educate the voter base on various issues? Or is it more being able to manipulate the voter base that already exists? In other words, to play the part that the voters would have you play to get their votes versus trying to change their minds or change their opinions on particular topics?
That's a great question, because I think the why should be, if you are passionate and believe in certain things, that your why should be to convince people that these things that we believe in would make a difference and make a better quality of life. So even if you don't win a campaign, you've had success in bringing that why and maybe bringing more people into that thought pattern. So I think that's really good. I think that's the why should be the why, because you may or may not lose a campaign. I mean, you have in a primary, you might have 7 or 8. I had 7 people running in the last primary I ran, and I came in second. And first place spent $300,000 or $400,000 at state assembly. I was second place. I spent $15,000. I got a mailer out of $24,000. I only ran for 90 some odd days. And then third and fourth ran for 2 years, and they spent close to $300,000 each. And I didn't really shoot an endorsement. So, but the why is important. Now, the why is going to be more, you have to have a little bit of money, and there's all sorts of mechanics behind politics. But to get that why out, people really start paying attention in the last 45 days or 30 days. When they get their ballot material approximately 28 to 30 days out, that's when the people start paying attention, the average voter. But I think that's a good question. So the other thing is manipulation. The special interest in that and what we have has grown so powerful out of Washington. I think it's more about manipulation and practices. And there used to be a lot of negative campaigning. There probably still is. That said, look at this campaign, this Republican primary right now, even the Democrats. This is one of the strangest races I've ever seen. I'm not a Donald Trump supporter, but by far, he's running the best campaign of the Republicans.
Yeah, I definitely agree. What part does? Give me a second here. What part what part does official support play, and what part does money play? And so, as an example, Bernie Sanders. Hypothetically, let's suppose that he does not get the nomination. Let's suppose Hillary gets the nomination. So he officially loses his support from the Democratic Party. Now, he could clearly maybe run as an independent if that happens. Why does that affect the outcome? In other words, if you're voting for a politician based on their stand on particular whatever issues are important to you, why should it matter that he gets the support of the Democratic committee or that he runs as an independent? I mean, clearly his position is not changing. So you would think he would keep the same followers, the same voter blocks regardless, but clearly it doesn't always work out that way. Why is that?
So when you lose the nomination, there's loyalty to the parties. At least 33 to 35% of each side has loyalty to the party. It means they vote a straight ticket. They don't deviate their vote, so they'll vote with the nominations. The other thing, too, is a lot of people just don't pay attention until it gets time to actually vote. And more people come up from the general election than the primaries, of course, because there's more activity, there's more at stake, and simpler as black and white as two people. So that's the mechanics are right there why generally people will fall in line behind each of the parties. There has to be a really strong, to win a third. I think you're talking about winning a third party race.
Right.
That hasn't been done. That's never been done. I mean, since the Whigs lost the Republicans right before the Civil War, that hasn't been done.
This is, and I'm not trying to go off topic at all, but isn't that also sort of a function of this first past the post voting that we have, that it encourages people start voting strategically and not necessarily for the candidate that they want. So they may want the independent guy, but they feel their vote is going to be wasted if it goes there. So instead they go to their second best option, who is, who they feel is going to be at least in there, being, Democrat or Republican.
I'm guilty of that. Yeah, I'm guilty of that.
How does a smaller race differ? So in other words, let's suppose that I want to run for city alderman, or I want to run for the school board, or I want to run for whatever, which I'm assuming is probably a reasonably good entry point to get into politics. Now I know, and maybe I'm only speaking for myself here, so maybe other people are better educated on this. But in general, when I drive around town election times, and I'll see an occasional sign out there, vote for so and so for for school board, I don't freaking know who any of the people are that are running. I really have no idea what any of them stand for. I don't know what any of them, sometimes I'll get in the poll, and I have to admit, when it gets to the lower levels, I'm just like, okay, which name looks cool? Okay, we're going to go with that one. So true. So how do you reach those people in this smaller campaign? I mean, you can kind of get out and walk and do door to door, and you can get some people to help you do door to door. But in the end, if you're in any kind of a size city, that's really not going to get you much of anything. So how do you reach those people on a smaller level?
It depends on your city. Like you just said, I'm from Modesto, a city of 220,000, and I was instrumental with it in this nonpartisan issue of getting districts put in place. So at least you have representation of a lot fewer than 200,000. You have a council member representing you. And that way a council member can almost go and knock on each household, drop off a mail piece. But that's really not effective on bigger races, because when they get too many voters, you can't go out and touch everybody. So I would say this. I would say hold back on your money. Don't be controversial. Don't do something that kills your campaign. Don't say something stupid. Even though I love to get on social media, too much social media can be detrimental because the newspaper could pick up something and twist it. But I would say when they get their first piece of voter, your county will send out a voter packet to each voter about 30 days out. So ideally, what you can do is you want to time what we call a positive piece about you and your background and your principles to drop on that same day that they get their voter material. Now, it varies from state to state. There's absentee voters, there's early voters, and there's poll day voters. So now we sort of watch the campaign, and if the next bit of money you have, and this is where you should spend your most money. Your money should always go for mail. Mail is more important than signs. It's mail, then yard signs, and a few larger signs. So that's the whole campaign on your expenses. If you take all your money early on and spend it with consultants and can't raise money, you're not going to have any money for those three things. So you need mail, you need signs, and then the final piece, you try to get out on you drop it. It's called red tag. So it's first class priority mail at bulk rate mail, costs about 10 to 11 cents a piece for mail, for the mailing, and then maybe 8 cents to publish. So 20 cents a piece, 22 cents. You drop another piece that lands on Saturday or Monday before the Tuesday election. Most elections are always on Tuesday, and the second Tuesday of November, or depending on March, depending on your state for the primaries. So that's the whole key. I think that I've experimented with that, and that absolutely works. I watched other people win elections, and I watched the real powerful people with a lot of money from Sacramento. I was in California most of the time. From Sacramento's got the fourth house, and basically what they do is in the fourth house, the powerful selected is there's a group of special interests in the middle, and I can name them all. I'm not going to do it right now. But they get together and sort of decide, we're going to put a Republican or Democrat from this district, and who we're going to support. Let's put our money behind them. So that's called the third house. They get massive amount of money. They try to run all the other candidates out by throwing a lot of money into that candidate early on and scare everybody. But you always will have somebody out there, going against them, but they may have no money or no funding and not be very good at politics, because a quote unquote politician who wants to get elected usually tries to pander to that third house, because they know if they get that third house back and their probability of being elected is probably 90%. So
going back to sort of the days of it, I think probably
California.
Kennedy was maybe the first, maybe a little bit earlier, where people all of a sudden, because of social media, because of media in general, ended up having to be good speakers, or good speakers tended to have an advantage over people that were not good public speakers. Is that, I'm assuming that's probably still true, if not more so true, but is that a deal breaker for somebody that wants to go into politics and is not a good public speaker?
No, I disagree with that. I think a monkey can get elected if he's managed right and he gets good mail and he can present well. Because I think at the local level and even state assembly, because most people vote based on that piece of mail that they have. Now, that said, my election that I came in second out of 7, spent very little money, and I think I could have won that if I just put out a few signs, because I lost my own city but won all the rural areas. If I would have just, I spoke 4 times. There's four different debates for that assembly seat. So the key at those debates is not saying something stupid that's going to get in trouble come back at you. So you don't have to say a lot. And the more people are in the debate, you get lost more in the discussion. So I don't think it's an asset, but not critical. And the other thing, my first election I lost for assembly against a guy who raised $800,000, couldn't say 3 words correctly. He hadn't graduated. We caught him on a couple of lies. He hadn't graduated from college, and he said he graduated. So we pulled his credentials out there. Unfortunately, his dad was the Secretary of Agriculture of the state of California. And he also had some other issues. I don't want to bring those up. They're too personal in nature. And we made a mistake, too. We hit him on his health, which we shouldn't have done.
Well, this kind of brings me to this next question. To what extent will this turn your family life, your personal life, inside out and upside down running for public office? It's rough.
Yeah. I was a city council and vice mayor of a city like a 200,000, and I moved when I was a reservist, so I went off to war, came back, and pretty well liked. It was kind of nice. I wasn't in assembly or city council anymore, but I couldn't go to the store. I like to go to the store, maybe unshaven, my workout clothes.
Sure.
I couldn't go to the grocery store down the block because if I look unshaven, people, that would be negative. And the other thing, people stop and talk to you all the time. And as a council member, we might be building a road through a town. I remember this one road that we wanted to connect, and it made sense to connect it to move traffic around, but people didn't want that because they didn't want traffic on that road. So you lost half the votes, gained half the votes in an area because of the traffic, So you'll make a lot of unpopular decisions. The other thing, too, is be ready as a council member. You're going to have 3 things. Generally, 90% of the people come to council because they want something from you.
Yeah.
And there's a couple and then secondly, they come because they're mad at you. And the third thing, maybe 5% of the time, they come because they say something nice about you. That's the whole council. That's not even one council. That's all.
This sounds like typically running any business.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Let me talk about trash companies and cable companies.
Ooh,
Really good study. I sort of on the side. I was civil military operations in the military and spent a lot of time in Leavenworth or Kansas. Kansas is where they put in the new Google fiber. It's 1,000 up, 1,000 down. It's just amazing. There's a city called Lawrence, Kansas, and the council balked at putting the fiber in because of the cable company got through to them. But the cable, that's a good example. Cable companies, trash companies, they have what they call franchises,
mm-hmm,
and they are, and public employee unions. Those are the top three donors in a city usually.
mm-hmm.
Because if you can control a council, you can get three. We had 7 members, so if you can get 4 votes, that sort of guarantees you that you're going to get those contracts.
Hmm.
So that's local election. So to beat those guys in the building industry. That's my industry.
Yeah.
That's a big one too.
What about, to what extent do you have to have a detailed plan or a detailed answer to an issue or a problem before you get elected? West Wing did an episode on this, and they called it the first 10 words. The first 10 words to solve any problem were simple. It's the next 10 words.
That's good.
How much do you have to know?
I don't think you have to know as much as you think, but I do think you have to have a plan. So the plan has to be simple. And first of all, it sounds like you know a little bit about politics. You generally, depending on the size of the race, you need some talking points. So you need to sit down and figure out what the talking points are for that race. And almost anything you come up or anyone asks you a question, you have a memorized paragraph that you can manipulate in your mind to fit the situation to make sure you say the same thing over and over. By the way, generally, if you're not a good speaker when you start, by the time you finish a campaign, you're a pretty good speaker. You can learn the tricks of the trade.
Interesting. The Democratic National Convention, the first one this year, and I can't remember who it was. I can't remember the gentleman's name that did this, but there was one question, and they were questioning a particular policy that he had voted on, and he had voted, I guess, opposite to the way that he said he currently felt. And his answer was, "Well, you can't blame me. It was my first day in office," which to me sounded like a concession speech more than anything else.
That's lame.
It was, and he repeated it several times, which just made it worse. He kept saying, "Well, it was my first day. You can't expect me to." Well, then don't freaking vote. But when you get in here, I mean, like you said, clearly, all your best efforts aside, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to say things in a way that could be interpreted, maybe not the way that you meant to say it. To what extent do you get to correct those faults after to what extent is the press nice to you in allowing you to backtrack something that you've said and correct it, or maybe put a finer edge on it? Or could care, they just looking for the clicks?
Well, that it depends. That's a good question. It depends on the press. It all depends, but generally the first negative that comes out, it's hard to reverse that from the press. People remember that, and then you have to go back and try to fix it. Well, what you don't want to do is you don't want to be apologetic. I don't think if you can avoid being apologetic, do not be apologetic. Press loves you to apologize. So the thing I would do is step back, don't do anything right away, and really think it out what the situation was. Let me give you a personal case. I've been activated. I came back. I probably shouldn't have sat in council because I was in and out of deployments, 4 months on council. So I came back in before Christmas and actually sat on a couple council meetings. And this one reporter, even when I ran for Congress, I've always had difficulties with him. We're talking about affordable housing and building a housing downtown Modesto. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of special interests who wanted to build that housing and get big subsidies from the government. And we had, I forgot the terminology, but it's the HUD money that comes in. And I used to be chairman of the council. So the bottom line is we had a lot of Latinos in the audience. I had been successful at building affordable housing out ahead of the growth and development of the communities where the schools and parks were in the new areas. I didn't want to go inner city and build houses. I wanted to get people out in the communities for the kids and the families.
Sure.
Because anyway, my company 8 years earlier in one of my first jobs, had worked on in Santa Ana, California, and they were tearing down housing downtown because there's no parks and kids in Santa Ana. And what I said, and there's a lot of Latinos in our audience, and Modesto back then it was about 45% Latino. I said in Santa Ana, which is 85% Latino, we tore down all of the housing because there were no parks or schools, and it created ghettos and barrios. Mm-hmm. And the families tended to be large that were in those housing units. Mm-hmm. So the reporter the next day calls 3 prominent Latinos in the community. What do you think of Conrad? Saying that if you build affordable housing downtown, the Latinos are going to move in. They're going to have big families that can turn to slums.
That's not what you said, though. Yeah,
that's not what I said. But you know what? The best thing about it, I was a Republican. I was vice mayor at the time, and I was really good friends with the mayor, who was a Democrat. And it was during the Christmas break, so he came back, and I didn't apologize. I didn't say anything. It was really bad. It was bad for my family because we looked like we were racist.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. But when we came back for our first council meeting, which was the week after New Year's, we had the TV channels there from Sacramento. We had a lot of press, and it was huge. It was really huge. And the mayor played the clip back to the entire audience. All the TVs left. There wasn't one bit on the news. The people saw it. Some people were irate at me. Others protesters outside.
Wow.
Protesters really couldn't protest after seeing it, but they still keep sort of slamming. Some people say, well, we need housing downtown. They still want the housing downtown thing. But that's pretty rough, and it was really hard on my family. But that's you asked the question, how to get around the news. If I would apologize or been apologetic of any case,
you basically would have been admitting guilt at that point.
I was just quiet for 3 weeks. I mean, I was totally quiet. I didn't do anything. And that's something I believe in. Sometimes it's better to say nothing.
And just let it pass. Yeah.
It's okay to lose the election, by the way.
So to what extent, let's hypothetically say you win the election. And I'm curious, and I suspect there probably are multiple viewpoints out there, but when you're in this position, do you feel that you have an obligation to push for the things that your constituents who put you in office want? Or do you feel that you have a responsibility, or do you feel that they put you there because they think you're smarter than they are? In other words, and that you're the best person for the job, and that you should be doing things the way that you think is the best way to do them, regardless of your constituency. Let's assume that you're not going to go for a re-election here. Which way do you see that?
These are great questions, and I'm happy we're recording this. I think a good candidate, that's not black and white. That's a great political question, because you have an obligation. A council members, less about social issues and more about good management and good practices. And you're dealing with, like I said, the special interests. So the special interests are going to probably try to persuade the local population that what they're doing is right. So if you know they're doing something wrong, it's going to be detrimental to the long-term health of finance or the city or the people. I think it's your obligation to vote against that issue and not go with what the public wants. So that definitely in that case. But in other cases where maybe it's not that important or that critical, whether you're talking about a street connecting or a park being built or a type of a park, I think you need to get out in the community and do what the community wants to do and go with them. Even if you don't like it, you need to vote with the community if it's something of that nature. So I think that's either or. You can go both directions.
Interesting. What about issues that are highly visible issues and divisive issues? So when people ask questions about abortion, when people ask questions about gun control, when people ask questions about whatever happens to be Muslims in the country or foreign policy, it seems to me that most people that are educated would look at those issues in an honest moment and would probably say they are far too complex to have a black and white answer. That at the end of the day, it depends is really the right answer. But you don't hear politicians say that. Politicians, regardless of what side of the fence they're on, always seem to have a very definitive position in terms of what is right and what is wrong. But fundamentally, that seems to be maybe disingenuous. Is it that the American public is not ready to hear an honest answer from a politician in terms of I really don't know abortion, let's say, for a politician to say there are good arguments on this side and there are good arguments on the other side, and to just leave it at that, people don't want to hear that. I'm trying to frame this as a question, but
voting block there. There's voting blocks and there's social special interest groups on both sides. That's a good question. I think in some of those issues, people want to know what's really behind the heart and soul of the politician and those social issues. You have an obligation to be clear in your mind what you've come up to or what you might do. So I think you have an obligation to tell people what you might believe in.
I mean,
as a candidate, but some candidates will try to go down the middle or go to one direction or the other. They should tell people how they really feel. They may not get elected though, so that's a tough one.
And that's a tough call, and I see that you sort of have the choice of being pragmatic and getting elected, and sometimes you might not have to be entirely honest in order to do that. Maybe the ends justify the means. I don't know.
Yeah, that's I think it's best to just say it once, say it clear and concisely how you believe, and
let the cards fall where they may. Yeah,
don't explain it. Hey, I can tell you another thing. I thought it's pretty good. Yeah. When I was running against Gary Conrad, he was a polished politician. He'd come up from 19-year-old city council member up into mayor of a small city and assembly, and I don't think he was Senate, but he's a supervisor, which is like in a county. So he'd done about everything in a very young age. We had a debate, a congressional debate, and it was about legalizing marijuana in California for medicinal purposes, and that's when it did pass that year.
Okay.
In both our positions, we were against marijuana, but I went on to explain it to too much detail, saying that we should not stop research or work, or at the time there's prescription for the oils of marijuana. I forgot what it's called, but I put a big long dissertation and that I'd worked out and thought in my mind, and I didn't need to do that because all his answer was, he was the next person to answer and said, "I'm simply against all illegal drugs." And he looked at me and said, "I'm screwed." I had more nasty notes from Republicans thinking I was some kind of druggie. Campaign. His father was a pastor.
Oh, God.
He did his campaign as the day before the Sunday before the election. This is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. The Central Valley has a lot of Oklahoma Christians in it because of the Grapes of Wrath type movement. Yep. A lot of Baptist-based churches. And he put on the windshield of every church and every parking lot a flyer that said, "Conrad does the devil's work."
Ooh.
And then they had on there, he supports, legalization of marijuana, which wasn't true. But it was pretty amazing to do that. And anything you do that last few days, the candidate doesn't have to really say anything about.
Well, but that's odd. I mean, you being a Republican, I'm assuming he being a Democrat. Usually, the evangelical right votes with the conservatives, votes with the Republicans.
His dad was a pastor, and it was a Republican safe district, so he was a blue dog, and he had to pull Republican votes into his house. Because in California, if you have a slightly leaning Republican district, it's like really safe. There are not many of those.
You kind of went into the area that I was going to go in anyway next, which is religion. I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee at the moment, and again, this is one of those questions that sometimes it's hard to frame. JFK, was asked this over and over and over again about him being Catholic, and he went on to say it shouldn't make any difference. Should it make a difference what religion a person holds in public office? Secondly, is it the public's right to even question that person as to what their religious beliefs are?
Say that again. I'm sorry. I sidetracked. I'm trying to read the notes a little bit.
Oh, that's no problem. No problem.
I put one up. Jonathan Denwood does a show with me, WP Tonic, a tech show. We put together a lot in technology. And it's hysterical. I just put up, I always knew he was devil. Yeah. We also have some other questions real fast. Let me put this one up here.
Yeah, please.
Let me put these up real fast. This is really neat, folks. If you're listening to this live, I'll put this up. I may make this into a podcast. But on this this is a great platform. By the way, if I was to run for city council in Reno, which I wish I could, but I'm too busy trying to run a business right now, I think I'd use this platform and just let people ask me questions. Even though maybe that's not smart, but as long as you're not out in the press and the press is not pounding you, this is not a bad platform to talk to people. And then all of a sudden show up with some money and some flyers that last 45 days because no one expects you to win when you do that. But anyway, sorry about that. What's this question? Why doesn't... Oh. I don't know where that came from.
I'm not sure either.
So I don't know that question. So I did want to do... So anyway, and then there's one last question from Jonathan here.
Yeah.
Rough.
I'm
not rough, Jonathan. I actually had a really nice morning. Watched Meet the Press. I watched another program that talked about the cigar who I worked with in Afghanistan, and I read the newspaper. So I had a nice morning.
Yeah, your sound actually sounds fine.
You know what? He's not. I have something called a Scarlett.
Yeah.
I'm going to put my Scarlett back on. I've got an old mixer I was testing this morning. It probably sounds.
Okay. What about religion? Does the public have a right to even question a candidate in terms of religion? And B, should it matter? Assuming that they do, should that be a consideration in an election?
Well, it's a free country, so
Hmm.
you you can ask anything you want to ask. It doesn't mean the politician has to answer it, but you have to have an answer for your religion. You have to have a basic answer. People didn't ask me a whole lot. One thing is when I ran for city council, is Modesto. This is after I lost to Gary Condit. Modesto has a real strong Christian organizational population with the big churches, and if you can be, they'll bring you to church, and they can't endorse you, but they'll introduce you. And that introduction for these mega churches brings a lot of votes. That only happened to me once because the guy who got me into the churches, I voted against his funding of one of his projects.
Well, as
I did that once.
myself as an atheist, I'm probably not going to get brought into any big mega churches here unless it's for
No,
condemnation.
and my family's all Catholic. And I was Catholic.
Okay,
I'm not a Catholic, but I go to the Catholic mass.
gotcha.
So you're an atheist, huh?
I'm an atheist. I was a born again Christian for about 20 years, and I've been an atheist for about 25 years. So
I've only known a few atheists in my life, and one of them was one of my interpreters in Afghanistan, and I feared for his life every day. One of my three. He was a Canadian citizen, but of Afghan origin.
Huh.
He was born in Afghanistan. Yeah, that's if you're an atheist, the Muslims are going to kill you before they kill me.
It's kind of funny. There was a hangout here on Blab a couple weeks ago, and it was a young woman from the Middle East, from Iraq, I believe, and it was a guy. And the title of their Blab was just. It's one of those English as a second language. It was poorly titled, right? She wanted to sort of have a platform for people to come in and ask about Islam, ask about what our beliefs were, and she titled it "Come Talk to Us, We Come in Peace." And I was like, oh, that's every bad B science movie, Alien, just before they eat your face off. That's probably not a really good title for your Blab. But it happens down here. We interestingly, in Kentucky recently, Kim Davis, our theist that didn't want to do same sex marriages, even though she was, elected as a county clerk. That became a very interesting piece in terms of, is she, if you take on a job and you know the requirements of the job, mm-hmm. Can you still claim a religious exemption once you're in that job? I mean, the rules haven't changed. So it was really interesting to see her sort of stand there and say she's not going to do this, but didn't feel like that justified having her removed from office. Oh.
The problem is that when she started, there were certain laws, and the laws changed, and the laws didn't go with her religion. So that's a tough one. I sort of leaned with her beliefs, but that said, someone else should have stepped in and issued those licenses. That's a law. That's a law of the land.
Yeah, I find it odd that Mike Huckabee kind of draped his arm around her. That to me seemed a bit. Yeah. I mean, that I would typically think a national candidate doesn't typically get down at that low level in terms of. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Well. Associations, yeah.
Hey, let me go back and correct myself. I said something that's really wrong, and I caught it immediately when I said Muslim without saying the extremist or extremist Muslim, because I worked 5 years in the Middle East, and 2 of those years I ran research teams, and I worked very closely with the Afghan army and other people who are Muslims, and I had Muslims behind me, around me, supporting me, doing everything. Muslims, 95% of all Muslims are not radical Muslims. There is a fairly large number, even 5%, who could be considered radical in nature, and even among themselves. And if, for example, if we went to Saudi Arabia and we lived with their Sharia law, we would think they're all radical, just because the law were so foreign to us as Americans. But the radicals we're talking about are the people who actually want to go out and kill people in the West.
Right.
The Shia, the Sunni, but 95% of everybody. I mean, it's hard to explain, but it is a war against radical Islam. And we just have to be really careful with verbs and words. And let's go back to the presidential election. I think that you really good things. This presidential election just is so different. Now, let me tell you what I think Trump is doing right. I'm not a Trump supporter. I always say that. But let me tell you what he's doing right. He has spent so little money. And that's so important, not to spend money early on in a campaign. So save all your money, preserve your money, make sure you're registered in each of your states as a presidential candidate. So that's what he's done well. But he has broken like every rule we've ever had when it comes to saying things.
Right.
But he didn't. But what he did that most candidates do, he didn't apologize for anything.
No.
So let's go back to the last election when Obama lost. I mean, Obama beat. I know his name. The guy who ran the Olympics. He's a Mormon. How could I forget his name?
Yeah, I know. I can see him too, and I can't. From Massachusetts, Mitt Romney.
Yeah, Romney. Romney was the biggest apologist I've ever seen. He apologized for being wealthy. I about fell over. How can you apologize for making wealth? You don't apologize for things, and that's why I think he may have done so poorly, is because he's an apologist. So, and then Trump is not an apologist. And the other thing too is I think Trump is smart enough to get the very best people around him and quietly around him in his campaign.
But why not apologize? But wait a minute, why not apologize? In other words, in society in general, we think of being able to apologize when you recognize you're wrong as virtuous. Mm-hmm. So why does it seem to work? Why does it seem to backfire when it's a political candidate?
I think it's what you apologize about. Romney was apologizing about being wealthy. And that was terrible. You shouldn't apologize about in a capitalist society about being wealthy. That's
about working hard. Yeah.
Working hard, yeah. I mean, just had a bad message. But I think you have to apologize in some cases, but it shouldn't happen very often. It can't be an everyday thing.
I heard an interesting hypothesis. Somebody said that perhaps Trump is actually an undercover Democrat, and he's running on the Republican ticket, feeling that if he gets the nomination, that's pretty much a guaranteed win for the Democratic Party, because there would never be enough people that would vote him into office. Now, I'm assuming that was said in jest, but I could almost see it that way. Do you think he's the kind of guy that is doing this simply because he's bored, for lack of a better word, and that should he get the nomination, he probably would just turn it down anyway because he doesn't want to be bothered with this?
I don't think that's going to happen. But if he wanted to, he could ensure that a Democrat is elected by running third party. I mean, easily.
That's true.
And there's some Democrats that are going to support him too. That's I've been watching this race. It's a good race to watch and study. And I wouldn't say this a few months ago, but he has a chance. He has a chance. I don't think Hillary has a chance. Well, she does have a chance, but she's got an FBI investigation out there right
active
now.
Right. Well, and this is interesting. I mean, I've talked to people that are Democrats who say that Hillary's nomination is a lock. Bernie Sanders is wasting his time. It may be. I mean, there may be. She must have enough connections, certainly over the years with her and Bill, to kind of to force that issue or to overcome some of these issues. I don't know. Like you said, there's an FBI investigation going. How important is that? Is that going to? Do you think that will prevent her from getting the nomination just by itself?
Because of the FBI investigation. Sorry, I was sort of reading.
Yes. Because of the investigation, assuming it doesn't conclude in time, and doesn't is still ongoing.
If it doesn't include in time, she'll get the investigation. But what happens if the investigation does come out, and the attorney general, the director of the FBI will refer to the attorney general to prosecute or not. But one way or the other, that case will become public information, and that's going to be pretty damning whether it's to prosecute or not prosecute. Ultimately, on the prosecution, probably the attorney general, along with the president, will decide. I thought for sure that Biden would run. I did
too. I was surprised that he kind of stood his ground and declined.
Hey, there's one question up there. I actually want to answer it.
Okay.
I think it's in jest, but I think you have to answer it. So I have Wizard behind my name. People need to know why you're called Wizard, and I'm not going to read the question. It's because and I'm a business guy. I've been around computers for 25 years, design, build, engineering. And I sort of took a turn after going back in the military. And when I came back, I wanted to learn more about programming, digital, WordPress, online media, things of that nature. I've always been interested in communications and systems. So I had Jonathan Denwood and a couple others called me the Wizard because of the podcasting early on. So it was a nice name, and I think it was a compliment. And that's why I picked it up and kept that for Podcasters Home. That said, in this last year, this whole media has changed so much. So I wanted to answer that. So hang up on that.
Yeah, I think at least from my perspective, when I saw Wizard, yeah, my mind doesn't run to the clan. It ran more to you being a bit of a
No,
nerd,
I mean,
maybe.
I wouldn't
A bit of a
associate
nerd.
that group.
Exactly. Uh,
No.
I was just saying, Sydney said when I ran for office, I didn't spend any money and still got 60 votes. What does this mean? Sydney is a friend of mine. He says, "Is money connected to winning elections?" When I
Oh, yeah.
ran for office, I did not spend any money and still got 60 votes. He's in Canada, by the way.
Uh-huh.
What does this mean? Okay.
Can I say something? I don't know how big their area is, but if you happen to be a Republican or Democrat and your name's on the ballot, you're going to get between 30 and 33% with doing nothing.
Really? In a local election you're talking about, basically?
No. It has to be a partisan election.
Okay.
Now, 60 votes, how many people were there? Come on up and explain the campaign. That would be good. I'd love to get people on who actually have run for office to explain why they ran
Yep.
and what their experience was and whether they won a loss.
He said, yeah, it was for city council. He said there were 11 people running.
Mm-hmm. How many seats?
And again, it depends on how big. I mean, as Sydney knows, before I lived in Chattanooga, I lived in Underhill, Vermont, population about 2,100. So it was elections there were very different.
City council elections, when I was running for city council in the 90s, the people spent between $50,000 and $35,000 and $70,000 to get elected. And that's a city council. When you have districts or smaller districts, it's less expensive. But that's citywide mailing and voting. And
talk to the people that know. I mean, it's to some extent this is like myself, but even the people that know less. What is the motivation? Right, you're going to spend $60,000 or $70,000 to get a minimal salary. For over the course of the next couple of years. What's the benefit to running, other than just altruism?
Well, let me say that when I was in California, we got $800 a month, and then went to $2,000 after I left for a council member. But it's really good. It's community service. It's the ultimate community service, and you really can make a difference. So if you want to make a difference, and it's a good community. Also, if you want to advance in politics, it's really a good stepping stone. I think you should run for city council before you run for Congress. I ran for Congress first. In retrospect, it would have been better to run for city council. And you may not make it past your council, or you may do so poorly you get voted out. Or not poorly, but your ideas may not trend with what the population wants and you get voted out, or the special interest.
Yeah.
The city council is a hard position too. I probably imagine it'd be easier to be elected congressman than a councilman. So I'm guessing.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's a good question. Get the back of your family. Get the backing of your family. I'm fortunate. My family, 99% of the time, has backed it. They get tired of it. Does a lot of work.
That's true too. Is it very much like? And again, my only point of reference here is sort of West Wing. Does your family get dragged into this political process, sort of unwillingly, kicking and screaming sometimes? In terms of reporters, do they question your kids? Do they question your wife? Do they, do they become part and parcel of the whole project?
Well, knock on wood, the Modesto Bee, which was the big powerhouse in the 90s when I was in council, was really good. They didn't bother my kids and my family. They were really good about that. So they were the powerhouse. But my wife, the only time I had a hard time is the firefighters union came to our house and sort of intimidated. My wife felt intimidated, and that's what she said. She's Irish Catholic, tougher nails. So
if she was intimidated, they must have done something there.
I mean, it was kind of she felt really weird. And I was battling back and forth with the firefighters at the time, trying to get some new rescue trucks in and a different system. The chief, I was helping the chief from the chief was trying to bring in dualies, and the firefighters union didn't want it, and it was crazy.
Well, the battling that we see, right, especially on a more public level in the media, right? We see the candidates calling each other's names. We see them yelling, screaming at each other. How much of this is a dog and pony show, and how much of this is actually is actually the reality of their personal relationships when they're off the stage?
It's insane, this cycle. I think Trump. I don't know. I've never been around Trump close, but every time I've seen Trump do anything, he seems to always act in character of how he's acting right now. And There's an attorney who's running the Republican. I could look it up. There's an attorney. I'm going to pause for a second.
Not only to hear what you have to say, which is clearly important, but I think it creates a bond, an identity, so that now when I go to the poll, I know who Bill Conrad is because I've talked to him on Blab for the last 6 months. once a month, and I've seen him. And this other candidate, I have no freaking idea who he is. I've never seen him, right? I have no contact with him at all. So even if I don't entirely agree with everything that Bill says, I'm probably more likely to vote for him anyway, because there's a comfort level there that's created by sort of this acquaintance or this friendship that you can build online with people. So I think it could be a good thing.
Let me say what I would do too. I would do a blab. First of all, I like this platform. I enjoy doing this. What I would do is I go around in my community. I think you'd still have to have some little meet and greets, things of that nature. But I'd leave a piece of paper behind, said, check in at 7:00 at this address, and I'll be on Blab. But the other really easy thing to do for people who aren't as can't understand Blab or can't get on Blab or are afraid of Blab is you can embed. If you go to this address, don't open this now because you get an echo. But I put this a lot of different places, but you can embed the code. So anytime I go live on a website with the iframe, it's on. So you just watch it from anywhere. The other thing too, it's recorded. So you can go back and let people listen to what you've said. If you keep it short and concise.
Well, and I think that's the thing too, like whether it's Periscope or Blabs, again, if you go out and you schedule a Blab on a particular issue in your community, and you have the Blab and you record this Blab, first of all, and I hate to say it, I hate to sound political here. I'm sounding kind of, I'm starting to sound like Kevin Spacey. But you could certainly have plants in Blab, to some extent. Mm-hmm. So you have friends that say with right. kind of pre-engineered questions that you want to talk about and you want to address, so they're out there and you can look good, make yourself look good. But also with Blab, you have the option to be able to edit this afterwards when you get the recording.
Right.
And then what you can really use it for down the road is as people ask questions or in your future literature, you can actually reference the Blab that you've already recorded and say, here's a Blab, with Bill Conrad talking about where he stands on X. And they can actually go there and listen to your position. And I think it's much better than just a pamphlet with some bullet points.
What I would do initially, I think I'd have my volunteers, at least 3 of them on with me initially as I start. All volunteers, and then on the questions on the right side, I'd answer the questions on the right side.
Exactly. You pick and choose the ones that,
that's how I
get rid of the spammers. Yeah.
We're talking about how you evolve. Like that one question we had about the KKK. I wanted to answer part of that, but I'm not going to address. Normally, I wouldn't even say the KKK. I just won't say anything of that nature. The other thing you got to be careful with, you say one word on this environment, it can be twisted.
Yes. Well, and that's got to be difficult on a local level, right? I mean, at a national level, I suspect if the opposition took your Blab and manipulated the media to make you say something that you clearly didn't say, that could be detected. You got enough people there with skills that could say, no, this is bullshit. This is not what happened.
The newspaper would do that for
right.
you. Or
but at a local level, you really don't have those resources. And so if somebody were to take the Blab and cut and paste and try and make you say something that you didn't, yeah.
Showing on iPhones to everybody in your neighborhood, walk door to door. Devil's work. It's got Scott's going to come on the show. I saw he's going to be on timelines. By the way, I'm on every morning at 9:00, and I'm going to try to be off by 10:30 so I can edit and be done and go try to figure out how to make some money. I'm retired. I went back to the military, retired military, and moved out of my city and pulled my wife of a realtor out. So I've got to figure out a way to make another $5,000 in my life if I want to continue to do this. So I don't know what I'm going to do. There's a lot of things I can do, but unfortunately they're overseas or they're back in my training. They're not in this environment. Yesterday I listened to a show while I was working, and they were talking about this media, and I forgot the guy's names. You'd know them, but they were all from the TV side of the house, and they're looking at this, and they were talking about, how it's so hard to get in radio now, or how to get in media now, because there's so much other media, but they think you could become a media star on these other platforms.
Right. And again, I know you're a Republican, but it doesn't seem like the Republicans have a lot of strong candidates going. Maybe Bill, you should consider running at the national level and bringing your skill set, ratcheting it up a notch.
By the way, the reason why I'm a Republican is because when I was in 8th grade, I read a book, and my family is Republican, but my mom's side's not, and my sister's not a Republican. I've gone to Bernie Sanders rallies. My mom's side are educators, and they're mostly Democrats.
Interesting.
But the reason why I'm a Republican is because I think that the more government you have, the less freedom you have. And
Right.
that government should be limited to only do those things we can't best do ourselves. And but I think the job of the federal government is to protect your civil rights. That's and to protect the defense of the country. So I believe in civil rights to the nth degree.
So
But
are you more of a liberal Republican then, or midline Republican?
I don't like those categories because I think I vary on every. I have a position on almost everything in my own mind. I may change slowly, but I'm more of a libertarian, I guess, or a Ron Paul libertarian in some aspects.
Interesting.
But
Well,
I believe that the federal government's job is to protect us, against enemies, but also to protect our civil rights, because that's what those civil rights are so important. No states, as you know, have tried to trample on civil rights. People have tried to stamp. I mean, civil rights are important. So I'm a big civil rights supporter, but I'm a Republican too. So, and if you look back, Eisenhower is one of my favorite Republicans, and he did a lot of things in segregation, things of that nature, desegregation. He was pushing it back during his campaign. He fought the industrial complex of the war machine after the war to try to downsize it, keep it downsized.
If you don't mind me asking, so on the current Republican panel, where do your preferences lie?
Somebody who can't win, Rand Paul.
Okay.
He can't.
So
right
where
now,
does your strategic vote go then?
The one thing I really don't like about Donald Trump, he's bringing a lot of attention. He's bringing discussion forward, which I think is good. But when I heard him say he wanted to bomb, civilians, and I've been in that environment, civil military operations officer, it's so against the law, so wrong that the leader of this country cannot go out and say you want to bomb civilians.
Yeah.
But we've got a lot of tough issues in the United States. The immigration issue is something that has affected me. My family is a third Latino, and I have really mixed feelings. I think you have to follow the laws, but it's just really tough. What's happened is the open border policy without documentation has been bad. They used to have the Vocero program, which allowed people to come up and work and then go back to Mexico freely across the border. And I think that's a good program. But what happened is they cut that out, so people will come illegally across the border, so already legally here, undocumented, stay for generations. That's one of the things I think caused the problem, is the lack of a way to legally go back and forth across the border. Those are complex issues.
And Bill, I think you said something. I'm not a Trump supporter at all. I think.
Who do you like?
I think, there's really not any good candidates early out there. They've got a really strong message right now that is, they've all got bits and pieces. They all say a little bit of the same thing. They all say one thing or another, but they don't attack. They're so worried about attacking each other and going after Trump. Trump is a smart man. He has learned how to play the media and tailor it to his needs. And that comes from years of him being on. So I posted Jeb Bush.
No, we'll talk when you're done. We're going to talk about what I just posted.
But that the thing is with Trump is, I like the idea that he is self-funded. I like the idea that he isn't going to have to report or respond to anybody else's money in interest to what they need for the for their business or their interests. But Donald Trump isn't a dummy, and he's got his own interests at heart as well, whether he's self-funded or not. And go ahead, Carlton.
No, go. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry.
Okay. So I guess my biggest problem is Donald Trump is he's getting a lot of airtime out there because, if you go on to any site right now, and he's everywhere. You go to YouTube and he's on there. I was watching a couple things on YouTube, he's doing a live stream and Hillary's doing a town hall at the same time. He's got 30,000 people in attendance. She's got, 1,000, 1,500. And online they're watching Trump. He's got 500 people watching him and she has like 30. And he says nothing new. He doesn't tell us how he's going to fix the problems, but he's got such a strong following because of how he's handled the media and how he's presented himself. And he's not that he's a horrible speaker, but he is a very off the cuff and able to say what he wants to say. And he talks in circles. And if you look at, it's always me, I, I'm going to do this. And it's one thing to say it, and then maybe you can say this and talk about this, is how hard is it to change what you've already thrown out there? I'm going to build this wall in Mexico. Mexico is going to pay for it, and it's just the way it's going to be. But once you get into office, what is it going to actually, what changes? Just like Obama wanted to shut down Guantanamo, but then when he gets in there, like, oh, okay, well, we found out some things and we couldn't really do that. You didn't want to say that on record, but then it didn't fall through. What changes once you finally throw it out there? This is what I want to change, because you're on the outside trying to get to the inside, and then once you get on the inside, you're like, oh, I didn't know all these other things were being kind of controlled.
There was a. I hate to refer back to West Wing again, but there was a great quote on West Wing, and I think they attributed it to Bill Clinton, but I could be wrong. But he said, "We campaign in poetry and we govern in prose." And I think that to some extent is very true. I think that people on the outside do, just by the very nature of the beast, they have to use a wide paintbrush when they paint. They have to speak somewhat vaguely, because they don't know what the environment is going to be like if and when they get to where they're trying to get to. And so it is difficult to make specific promises. And I think the other issue there too is, with any complex problem, there probably are a variety of ways to attack the problem. And I can see why you might be hesitant to pick one way pre-election and say, this is how I'm going to do it, when the fact of the matter is, it really doesn't matter how you get there. And I would want to leave myself some flexibility when I get in, to be able to take different roads to attack various problems. So I think there's some wisdom in being vague before you get into office.
You're right. Getting elected and leading is two different things. The art of getting elected, and it changes slightly every cycle. That's good. Funny, I want to change directions real fast, because you said something at Guantanamo issue. And the reason why Guantanamo hasn't closed yet on his promise, and he's still trying to do it, the president, is because he's had Robert Gates, who I worked under Robert Gates. I had the privilege of working between him and the military, Chuck Hagel, and then what was it? Leon Panetta for a while, were the three who I think all said that you can't shut it down to the president. The Secretary of Defense is. Leon Panetta also was a CIA director, and he's probably one of my favorite people in politics. I don't know if anybody tracks Leon Panetta, because he's West Coast. I have friends that know him pretty well from West Point. He lives in Carmel Valley. But that's really changed the directions, didn't I? It sort of hit that out the other direction. Talk about Guantanamo. That's a good case study, Guantanamo thing, because it was a political. Guantanamo was a political. Oh, what did it? It was one of those. There's a name for it. It's a wedge issue. Oh, we didn't talk about wedge issues. We went back. The politicians, if you're losing election, one of the tactics they used to teach is you use a wedge issue to try to break apart people away from that other person's campaign. So that was definitely a wedge issue when he was running against McCain.
Oh, McCain.
McCain, yeah. And then once that was weird. I think McCain even said that it needed to be shut down too, because he didn't like the waterboarding issue. Yeah, it's weird. This is a weird world. Hey, let's finish this up next few minutes. Scott, you're going to be on. What day are you going to come on at 9:00? I could look it up real fast.
Tuesday. It's on Tuesday.
I could look it up real fast. I've got a system that's 9:00 Pacific. Scott's going to come on Timelines on Tuesday at 9:00, and Monday, Tuesday. Let me look. It's the 5th. On the 5th, they're right there.
Yep. Because I've got your show, then I've got two of my own. Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're going to do your own. That's good. And how you doing?
One I do on YouTube. One I do through YouTube Live. I'm testing that right now. And then the other one is like an after show where we're going to be on. I'm going to have some people come on blab, or I'm just going to talk to myself, evidently, and see who comes on. It's just going to be these shows that I'm going to be coming up with. I try to do a different show every week. It's really kind of tech based, but it's all over the place because I've done a ton. And this one is going to be about finding the right DJ for your event, or sound reinforcement for your event, and lighting for weddings or restaurants, or for whatever it is, Halloween parties, Christmas parties. And so we're going to kind of talk about that, what to look for, and how to choose the right DJ or lighting person, or because a lot of people are getting away from that stuff to go more towards saving money from decorations. There's more doing more lighting. So what to choose in that? So
that's not really a good show, actually. Those are interesting things with this new technology.
Yeah,
in your position, you work for a very conservative school, the number one sort of a think tank.
Number one.
A think tank, and it's got to be interesting, and it's going to be social conservatives. And
I hear a lot at the college. I mean, we have you've got, and for those who don't know, I work at Hillsdale College, which is number one. I mean, I see these guys and doing shows, oh my gosh, who's the conservative talker that comes on? Oh, we do interviews all the time. Gosh, oh bless America, I can't think of his name. But anyways, I mean, they do live shows from the campus, and we've got to meet a lot of these people. I see a lot of them all the time. Like I was telling Bill, I mean, we did an event in Dearborn where we had Ben Carson there, and we had Chris Wallace, Donald Rumsfeld, all at that event. They were all speakers for, and you get to hear a lot of their views. Now, Donald Rumsfeld didn't want us to talk about a lot of different things. He was really talking on the conversation in that NLS was about the media and how the media controls what it wants to, basically. And then Chris Wallace was there to, talk about his side of things. And it is true. I mean, you watch a lot of the media and Fox and this, that, and the other thing. And a lot of people say a lot of bad things about Fox. And I'm not a big, strong supporter of Fox News. I mean, and I'm not a strong supporter of CNN. I kind of, you have to read between the lines. And they all said that. You have to read between the lines and pick out a little bit from this one, a little bit from that one. And you make up the two, and you're going to get your real answer, because one is they control it the way that they want to spin the take. If they want to control that conversation or get their message across to their candidate they're really wanting to back, because it has their personal interest of maybe a business partner or something else that might be out there for funding for their agenda.
Yeah, I know, I agree, and that leads to the big special interest issues out there right now. And by the way, on the Hillsdale, on the right and the left, a lot of times they have special interest, but they're such that they don't negotiate like the middle does for the money. There's middle special interest. I don't want to name them because I don't want to get sued. But there's some really big ones, and they build like jet engines and power plants and solar systems and cars.
Well, Hillsdale College is, and I don't speak. I'm not speaking for Hillsdale College, but I've been there 2 years now, and I don't get me wrong. I really enjoy it, and I'm an independent. I vote for who I feel is going to do the job. I mean, I voted for Bush. His father. I didn't really vote for a junior or that because I didn't feel he was that good of a candidate. But the issue I had is the college is really, they're self-funded. They've taken no money from anything in the government, and they used to take the VA bill, the GI.
The RTC.
The RTC.
Right.
And
They don't
the VA.
they have to take the funding, I think.
Nope, they don't take any Montgomery GI bill. They don't take anything.
Wow.
And which is really interesting because we do have military on campus. I've got one of us students. Jamal is he's about my age, 40, 42, 43. And he's now a freshman at our campus, and he comes from Baltimore. He goes back and forth. He actually is in the active Army, and he's a lieutenant in there. And he goes back and forth once a month to do his drills in down by DC. Active
Reserve, it's called.
Active Reserve, right? And so he goes and does his drills down there. But he's on a grant from the college, and the way they do it is they do fundraising like anything else. They raise money from donors, private donors. Some are, and not all of them. There's not like a special stake interest in the college of like, okay, we want you to teach this, and that's the way it is going to be. No, they donate to the college because they like the message of the college. And that's why I believe in the message of the colleges too, is a freedom of speech, limited government. And, I don't want the government telling me I've got to, unfortunately, have to wear my seatbelt. You know what I mean? I don't like to wear my seatbelt. Right? Hey, I want to put my helmet on. I don't want to have put my helmet on when I ride my motorcycle. If I want to, those are my choices. If I want to be a moron and ride at 80 miles an hour down the highway with my no helmet on, then that's my choice. But I don't want the government to have to tell me that I need to wear my helmet, So I believe in what the message of the college is, freedom of speech, freedom of rights, to make your own choices and that. And I completely, have no problem with their freedom of religion. We've got a lot of different religions at the campus. We have some Buddhists, and there's some of them, being a strong conservative college, it is tough for some of these students because they don't all come from, solid Christian or solid conservative beliefs. Some of them are the college is about educating everyone to think on their own. And they talk a lot about it, even in the campus. So the big thing is to get this college to we're great at fundraising. I mean, it's an unbelievable thing that we do. I mean, they're heavily involved in it. They know how to speak to the donors. They have the political backing, with Dr. Art and everybody else to go then get these interviews, to get these speakers. They know what they're talking about when they go out to do them. So it is great to see. It is great to see that the college is doing well, but it is all donations. I mean, like I said, Jamal's on this scholarship, but it's a donor that gives him the money to go to school, and he pays it back or partially. I don't know how the whole thing works, but it is being paid back to some way, shape, or form. Right. But these are all private individuals, and I've met a lot of them at these events that they enjoy, and that's one good thing about the college. They don't always just stick to all conservative things coming into the campus. They do bring in controversial or libertarian ideas as well.
Pause for a second.
On that, it's
Hey, could you flip that back up again? I just want to record it for a second.
Oh, sure.
That's real neat. Now it's the vMix, right? Now, is that just the software with your Dell, with the video cards?
Yeah, it's with the video cards. Like you can see, I just put myself. In the preview window, which is all black background behind me. If I was to turn off the chroma key, which you can see, if I turn it off, I have a green screen behind me. And I can do whatever I want, and then I can input it into a virtual input. So if I wanted to change my inputs and say, well, heck, I can create another input really quick, which is really great. And I could create another input. Let's say I want to sit at a news desk. Mm-hmm. Well, I can put myself at a news desk and zoom in on it. Let me see. You can probably see in a little bit. I don't know if you want what you're seeing.
It's about $1,000 packet.
You don't have to get the $1,000 packet. You can get the cheaper packet. It starts around $300-400. And then I choose what talent I want, which is my cam, and you can see, and I can adjust myself in there. It just takes a little bit and reset my position and where I want to sit and my size, and I have to play with the size and everything else. But you can see that in a very quick amount of time, I'm sitting at a different desk or whatever else background. I can actually get rid of the front, to make it look a little different. So I don't really care for that table. I can actually make it invisible and then relocate my position. Let me just kind of.
What I was thinking is, you put a group of people together and you know who to go talk to. But this platform, I think this platform is a good platform for candidates to use, learn how to use it right now. By the way, I invited. And I know these guys. I invited 7 politicians to this thing, and not politicians, but 7 consultants who I work with or known, or a couple of them been on my show. 3 of them, and Democrats and Republicans. I invited them today, and none of them showed up. None of them came back to me because they don't even know what Blab is.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, and that's what the question I was asking when you were gone is, you know, how important is, I mean, because like I said, myself, the problem I have is you don't get to know on the smaller platform. You know, on the national, you can watch the national ones and see what everybody's talking about. But on the small platforms, you got these people running for, councilmen or councilwomen. You got people running for even the mayor's position. I mean, you don't have an idea what a lot of them even are, their platform is that they're even standing for. You know, if getting yourself out there and getting yourself known on a blab or a Google Live and taking this, I mean, because really I can take this entire broadcast, my show right now, and take it on the road in a very simple package. I could do it with, if I didn't have my desktop here, you could do it with a laptop, a powerful gaming laptop, and a capture card, like an HDMI capture card, and or a Thunderbolt capture card, and you can take this thing and go anywhere with it with your camera or two camera and have one person operate it, so you don't have to. But even so, if you're on the same network, you can actually control it from an iPhone. It's really great that you create technology. Now, this is not broadcast quality. I mean, it is for streaming.
As long as I can hear it.
Yeah, but it's a new thing. It's getting popular, and the cost of it. I mean, for me to put, and I talk to these other guys in the Tech Buzz and all that stuff, and they have all the TriCaster mixers, and don't get me wrong, a TriCaster mixer is a great switcher, but I don't have. I mean, I make decent money where I'm at, but I don't have the. I guess right now it's too much for me to move. If I wanted to take this show and let's say, like you were talking, is okay. The so and so is running for city council, and they, hey Scott, I want to do this town hall. I want you to shoot it and stream it for me. I could easily take this whole setup in a matter of minutes and pack it up, take it on the road, because I have it in a road case as well, and go down the road and shoot this event. Set up in about 15 minutes, and I'm up and running. As long as I have an internet connection and
I'm about
the TriCaster.
I'm about to throw some links in here.
With the TriCaster, I can't do that.
I interviewed the candidates for mayor for Reno, and it was really neat. Once I interviewed one, they all started, the ones who actually won and the top guys, when they got into the runoff, both interviewed with me. So I did it on Google Plus Hangouts and then turned it into a podcast. But it's changed since I did that a year and a half ago. It's changed because now we have Blab. The other thing too is I flipped a campaign in the 90s when robocalls were just kicking in. The special interests spent a ton of money to prop up a mayor, and I was on council at the time, and I knew it was misinformation or lies. And it was right before the election. It was dropped a little too soon. It was dropped on like a Wednesday, Thursday, and the election was on Tuesday. I got that information. We didn't have enough time to get a mail piece out to folks. So what we did is we took a robocall. I recorded it because people trusted me because I just won an overwhelming re-election for council, and this is a mayor runoff. And I put it out there, and it went out in robocall and went in people's cell phone. So in the 90s, that was the technology that won. Now later on, that didn't work anymore because people got tired of the robocalls. But it recorded, and it just said, "Don't believe what's in this mailer it's put out." And that's all I said. I didn't endorse or anything. And he won an election when he wasn't supposed to. I think we don't know what's going to happen. We're going to figure out how to use this platform for politics. But the way I'd use it right now is just get up and do a weekly call. And I'd make sure I got maybe one other or two other people on it, all my supporters. I wouldn't put somebody who's not my supporter now. Then I'd answer the questions. Secondly, I want to go back to something you said too. Jonathan Denwood's watching right now. And he said something that's very true. And I realize it too. I gave him a hard time the other day. And Jonathan, I like to let people take over of running the whole thing, whole systems. And he was talking and running it, but it's really good to have like three people, one person interviewing somebody, an assistant, and the assistant's just watching the questions and then bringing up tech, helping in the background. So you need like three people, somebody watching the questions, someone bringing them attention, someone being interviewed, and someone leading the interview. I was trying to get my the links up here. Let me see. This is a search link. I don't know if it'll come up or not if people put it in there, but that's my mayor search link off of Timelines, and it shows the two mayoral candidates. And those came up really well. I was using my cheesy Behringer mixer and an internet connection. I was doing YouTube. Google Plus Hangout, and it came out really well and turned into a podcast. Here's the guy who won, by the way. Here's the guy who won for mayor in Modesto. Beat in that one case where he put out the robocall. By the way, that was in a national magazine that wrote that up, how those robocalls made a difference in the election because it was brand new. So, but that doesn't work anymore, and things do change. Yeah, I'm going to clean it up. If you get a chance, Scott, come back tonight. I'd like to have you on as a special. Well,
me especially, but I'm more special.
You can come on, but I'm thinking the other guy's really good. Huh?
I'm more of a special ed than a special guest.
No, you know the stuff. Maybe how technology, you might have a different viewpoint, how technology is going to affect this next election. Yeah, and
I think that's more, I think that's the big thing. I was just actually getting ready to, and I'll do that for tonight's event. I was actually, there's on this vMix, they have a social app. And just going back to what you were saying is, somebody, and I'm going to be starting to do that as my show starts to gain a little ground. I've got one of the guys who works with me. He can sit in the other outside of the studio here, and he can actually control my lower thirds and, my Skype interview, because my Skype interview computer is sitting outside the office here. And because we want to bring in guest DJs or guest people that do AV, maybe like Rob or something like that, we can do Skype him in. But I can also bring in those Twitter and Facebook feeds and everything else into, and he can actually pick and choose and still, and like all the messages pop up here, which is great. You can read what people are saying, but in the Twitter feed on the special interest side of it, it has a Twitter, and you can actually pick what you want to see. Like if it's a good relevant question, they can bring it up just like they do on the big TV shows. Hey, so-and-so from Twitter says, hey, blah, 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 blah. And you can answer that question, and you can bring it up on there right on the bottom. I was going to try to hurry up and do it really quick, but you're going to be wrapping it up. And
let's do it tonight. Here's the other thing. Just think about this. I'm working real hard trying to develop some training and targeted towards different groups. And one of the groups that I'm targeting is politicians. I mean, I think maybe I could make a little bit of money going out with the right group of people, making an online membership training package that here's some thoughts, here's some ways that you might be able to use this platform. A couple $100 if you want us to come set it up or help you in the backside manage, we'll negotiate that. But I'm just looking at ways to monetize this thing. Not that I want to monetize it because I want to do more of this because I enjoy it so much. I enjoy meeting the people, and I think it will have impact. What's amazing is I don't see the big guys doing anything yet. It's funny. It's just, I don't even see anybody talking about this stuff.
No. And that's the thing is just only people that I see really pushing, the only people really pushing the social media stuff right now is Donald Trump. And he is that's why he's leading 35 points above all the other GOPs.
Obama had a podcast. And
I've watched a few of his
campaign 8 years ago.
Yeah, and you know what? I've seen a lot before, and he does them right from the White House now. He'll address. He's still big in it. He'll have the main camera who he's going to be addressing the nation. Actually, when they addressed the nation right after the California incident, I watched the podcast come from him right on YouTube Live, and you could see he was looking at the main camera, but off to the right of it, which I don't understand why they did, but I don't know, maybe how they had the streaming set up for security issues. But off to the right was the camera for the podcast. So he wasn't looking directly at the camera for the podcast, but it was live, unedited, uncut, straight from the, you watch the blue screen from the White House, and then he came on, said what he had to say to like the nation. There was no, CNN or anybody cutting in or any of that. And then when he was done, it ended, which is great because you felt like you got the raw information right as he said it, instead of getting, the preamble, the president's going to speak here in a few minutes. And then once you're done, then they got a whole slew of information of people trying to analyze what he has to say. I got the information that I wanted to get from it. And I thought it worked really well.
He did a podcast with Mark Maron. I'm going to find it. And he also did a Google Plus Hangout, was one of the first to do a Google Plus Hangout series, which I used to use as an example to show people. But I'll tell you, I can't get any traction from the Republican Party in Northern Nevada in this area. Zero.
Yeah.
And yet President Obama has been really hitting hard on it. Whether you like him or not, he's doing better than anybody on this social media platform.
Yeah. And that's,
his daughters might have something to do with it too. He relates because of his daughter connectivity, having the daughters the age he does.
Yeah, and I tell you, he's just by far. I'm just watching, and you can see, like I said, I'm not a Trump supporter. I think I like the idea of and this is a thing I thought of years ago is we need a candidate that's not bought and paid for. That we need a candidate that is true to the American public and really cares about the American interest. But the problem is Donald Trump is he's so abrasive and pompous, I guess.
Pompous. I like a pompous and abrasive.
He's very arrogant, and I want to build a wall, and Mexico's going to pay for it. They're just going to pay for it. And how is that going to happen? I mean, that'd be great. What are we going to do? Send the military in there to rob their banks? I mean, what is going to happen there? How are we going to make them pay for it? So that's some of those things is, let's be real with the people. Let's, but I do think that we need a better class of politician. We need somebody who's actually gives two rips about the American public and not really about the special interest groups, and is going to make some changes. Am I saying Obamacare or the Affordable Health Care Act is the best thing to do? No, but it's been done in other states, that have similar things. But there are things that I do believe in it. I do believe that myself, as being a self-employed person for 20 years, it was very tough to get insurance, good insurance. I mean, my wife has COPD, and it was very tough for her to get insurance. The medicine wasn't through the roof. She worked at a pharmacy, and people would come into the pharmacy that are 65 years old, 75 years old, and taking cancer medicine, to survive. And their hands are shaking, writing a check because the dang thing is $500 because they're in the donut hole of the Medicaid Part D.
My mom is like that.
And it's ridiculous.
Every year, it's a couple $1,000 every year that she has to pay out because of that.
Well, it's like my grandfather. I mean, he passed away several years ago, but he served in the military, World War II, and
he should have been covered by VA.
Yeah, and he wasn't because no one knew to follow up with it. I was the only other person in my entire family, that had been in the service. Mm-hmm. So I get covered from the VA because I got injured overseas. So not that I'm like 100%, I'm like 10% disabled. It's nothing major, but they still give me small benefits. But the nice thing is the VA takes care of it. Now, there's been a lot of bad talk about the VA over the past few years by all the politicians. Oh, take care, And I've met a lot of veterans in the VA that are really doing. They're being really taken care of. Now, I've been in several hospitals. I've been in Wilmington, Delaware. I've been in Ann Arbor. I've been in Battle Creek. Each one has always taken care of me, and I haven't really had too many issues. The only tough thing is, yes, you have to wait for a doctor's visit, depending on how busy your doctor is to get into. But in all said and done, they've taken a pretty good care of me. And gosh, I got off topic there a little bit. I forgot where I was going with that.
Yeah, I do that all the time. I use my mind wanders.
I was reading the chat there, and I try not to read it every 5 seconds.
It's that mind going back. You can only think of one thing at a time, and it's easy.
But what I guess where I was going is we do need to do something about that. It's not right that like I said, my grandfather, I got him into the VA. He was 84 at the time, and he got dementia. No, I apologize. He was 90. He was 90 and as soon as he turned 90, he got dementia really bad. And his care at his nursing home went through the roof. And he was starting to run out of money because he didn't expect. He had his Social Security and all that stuff set aside in retirement, but he's starting to run out of money at that age. So I worked with since I knew the in and outs. My uncle, who was his kind of manages a estate, and being the youngest of the boys, and back then that's how they did it. Is the men were kind of the executor of the estate. So he, I kind of worked with him and got him all set up, but he had to come up and find out. But he eventually did. He was full eligible for receiving benefits at age 60 because he was in the war. But he never filed for anything, didn't know anything about it. But then we did get him some benefits. He was covered, 100%. So his medication started getting paid for. They also sent him cases of Insure to help him gain weight because he just wasn't eating well. And they paid him, I can't remember what it was, like max like $1,600 a month to help pay for his medical.
My dad had Insure too. Hey, let's. I'm going to finish this up, but I want to talk about a couple of things. Someone asked a question. I saw how many candidates did you interview? I've done about 90 interviews for Timelines at the time. And one thing I noticed is every candidate who won, I interviewed. Not just because I interviewed them, they didn't win, of course, but it's their attitude is they're open enough to come on the show. And they had watched other of my Timeline shows to know that I don't go out to destroy or hurt anyone. I'm just trying to find out who the candidate is, what do they do, and why are they running. And that was, you know what? If you're in any community, any town, you can set this up right now in your community. Get a couple cameras, computers, come to your house, show them how to blab, and you can interview them and start a show. That's a simple show that everyone can start. And I think it's a good thing to do. And I would go out with a positive attitude of not being mean or cruel or just find out more information about the candidate. So I got to interview all those candidates, but I paid my dues too, because I didn't want to join the Republican Men's Club here because I wanted to create something that was nonpartisan when I first got here, but I couldn't get it going. So they're the only ones that embraced me enough to let me come in and do some streaming media. So I streamed all of their shows, and I got to stream when their congressman came in front of them. I streamed Attorney General. So I had some credibility there. And then I offered this, and I belonged to something called the Collective, Reno Collective, which is a think tank downtown, a great place, has some credibility. And I brought people in there, and we did YouTube interviews. So I started doing that early, thinking that's the way to go. And I was trying to figure out how can I monetize it down the road too. But so that somebody asked, I probably interviewed 8 or 9 people. I just put a bunch up, and I put then I also interviewed some political consultants. But it's really funny that political consultants who would not interview, who just sort of blew it off. It's strange. Well, Scott, I invite you back tonight. I'm going to have to do some work. I'm going to actually need to go in and work on. I'd love to have Rob come in. I have a question for Rob. Love to talk to Rob. Hey, Rob, can you come up on Zoom? Oh, there he is. This is better yet. He's coming up here. I'm going to go ahead and record this too.
As needed. Hey, I got this job. This guy has called me. Hey, he's got a big restaurant. He wants me to wire 25 TVs, or he wants to put a sound system in. Yeah, here's what I'm going to bid it at. Here's what I'm going to pay you guys if you do it. So I pay them most of it. I might get a little chunk of the action, but I'm not doing anything either. Just maybe making the contact. Right. So, and I'll design it, put it together. Hey, this is what we're going to do. I'll buy the product. So I might make a little bit of the back end, but that's the way it is now. And now everything I do has been, even building the company, has been all about building it off the internet. And all of my software that I control the company with, that's how I was able to be so successful in such a short amount of time after losing just about everything when the economy collapsed. Was I seen the use and application of the internet and web-based software, and not having to travel. I mean, gosh, GoToMeeting and all that stuff. Now there's Zoom or whatever it is. I'm still kind of learning on. But there's all these other meeting platforms where I didn't have to travel anymore. I can meet you face to face. We'll have a face-to-face conversation. I got my computer in front of me. We can talk about spreadsheets. We can talk about numbers. We can talk about anything. Here we're talking about politics. And I'm not a politician. Yeah. And that's a great thing.
And what I think we're ahead of the power curve.
Yeah.
I think we're ahead of the power curve. So if we master the power curve and get the systems down, and I think, believe it or not, and Jonathan's up there with WordPress, whether it's WordPress or Drupal or what are those other platforms, you have to master that too, because somehow you got to tie everything together.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking, and Rob had mentioned in the chat group about, really selling this stuff coming this year, which has been my whole thing of playing with what I'm doing is, the churches and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also looking at the small businessman. I have a friend of mine I golf with at the golf club. I have quite a few friends of mine, but they're big. They're big. One's a huge insurance company. Actually, he has the insurance for the college, but I golf him at the golf club. He's a very personable person, but I talked to him. I said, Chris, he's thinking about doing something for his insured, of doing like a weekly show hey, look at the new insurance, or maybe explaining, the Affordable Health Care Act, or maybe explaining this new auto owners policy that's come out, or whatever it is. Here's the perfect platform right here on Blab.
You want to pair it with Mike on Sheehan, who's watching, because he's done a number. In fact, Bill, you've done a few shows with him, haven't you?
Oh, Mike, he's a great guy. I'd like to do a show with him on insurance and real estate, and Jonathan can come in too. Jonathan, the other thing is, problem is the only way I know how to put a commercial in is in an iTunes. So they here, family here. Hey, I got to go. I'm gonna let you guys carry on. Carry on. If you're still here, I'll see.
He just dropped out, and here we are once again on the political Meet the Voter. Here's two voters. They're here.
There's Jonathan.
There he is.
Yeah, I'm in Starbucks, so it might be a little bit noisy. But Bill amazes me how he can just poof and just leave you.
Bill does his show fully without his medication. There's no Ritalin in his show.
He just goes poof.
Look at squirrel.
He is the KK wizard of Reno.
Yeah. I guess we could probably answer a couple of these questions here. Check them off here. That's been answered, I guess.
I came in after watching. I had to run into the grocery store and came back and looked in the questions, and I'm like, holy crap, you guys got spammed big time.
Oh yeah, I seen
there's
that.
There's some real nutters on this. What are they on Rob? What are they talking about?
I know.
This is what I want to know.
Yeah. But
go on.
So we talked about a little bit of things. I guess I don't know how much we want to talk about, Rob, but if you want to turn this over to a techie show, so we're talking about politics. I'm not, so I can't run a politics show. I'm the least candidate here for politics. So, but Rob, I would like to. What do you think about technology, and what are some of your favorites out there, Rob? I mean, what are you looking at for TVs?
I mean, for us, we're a big Samsung Sharp, particularly Sharp. Although they've had in the last quarter, they had some manufacturing glitches.
Yeah, I have few.
But I always run the debate, particularly with enterprise customers, where they're like, "Oh, well, we want to do only commercial grade displays," and theoretically that makes sense. But many times, when you quantify the longevity of a television, it actually makes more sense to think of TVs as being disposable.
Right.
So if you're going to spend, $1,000 on a 60-inch consumer versus $1,500 on a commercial, I would probably say you're better off number-wise to go with the consumer TVs, because you can always then have a cold spare of it.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
3,000. Hey, Carlos.
And I do the same thing as well. I mean, I'm a big Samsung fan. I mean, I've got two Samsungs in my house. But I'm also, Sharp is a great TV, especially, but yeah, they have had some manufacturing problems, but they've got that new 90-inch. I don't know if you've put that. I've put two of them puppies in, and I tell you what, they are great. They save a lot of headache, and they work really well. I've been really happy with the performance of it, especially even on action shots and football and everything else, because we have we put them at the college for our large banquet room in a back little kind of a area that's kind of hard to see the stage. And then we put it also in the student area for them to watch that, because we had a rear projection, using the mirrors and the whole 9 yards in there. It was just nonstop problems with that dang thing. It kept going out, wouldn't connect, the bulbs. So we put that in there. I just put some wood backing in there and put that thing in. I tell you, it's great. But another one I'm very fond of right now is LG. LG has been really a phenomenal, especially if you're getting into digital displays, which I think is another hot topic for this 2016, is digital displays. And if you haven't, and Rob, I don't know if you've played around with digital displays at all, but we have them at the college, and that's when I first got introduced to them, and I started playing around. And I'm like, wow, this is really great technology. It's cheap, and it can really promote a business, especially for a small restaurant or a small gas station.
Well, I think. Well, let me just catch on this, because I wanted to forget it. But one of the things that I think is interesting is digital signage. Has existed for a while, but most companies do a very bad job of it.
You're right.
They'll simply spend thousands of dollars on media players, or the Cisco players or whatever, and then they'll run a recurring PowerPoints loop. Yep. And I'm like, oh my God, really?
Yeah.
So to what, one of the things that I thought that is perfect and complementary is services like Blab and video conferencing is that it now generates content for that company or entity. So now that they can then recycle that into their digital signage campaign so that they are constantly refreshing it with new content. Because if you're doing digital signage and you're not refreshing the content and you still have Merry Christmas or or Happy 4th of July still in your digital signage campaign, you know that it's a big fail.
And that's one of the things that I found too is with I have my assistant, and she's kind of managing that with my students because I don't have time to focus on the digital signage and the content because it's my department manages that. And that's my theme to her is it's got to be fresh. It's got to be constant. It's got to be always something reoccurring. It's got to draw the interest of the student, not only the student, but the guest coming to the campus. And a lot of the software out there nowadays, there's a couple software companies I use. We sell it ourselves and we manage it, and we can do a remote management. We were actually working, I don't know if we have a Cottage Inn out here. And I was talking to Cottage Inn, which is they're not a massive like a Domino's. They're pretty decent size. They've got, 300 locations, I think. And we were talking to them about doing digital signage in there, and we still are about doing digital signage in their restaurants. Maybe not the whole thing, but but that's becoming the new medium for restaurants is to do a digital signage, with the display. It changes over at a certain time to a lunch menu, but in the middle or in the sides, somewhere it has a fresh content of a steaming cup of coffee, or it has a new McFlurry shake coming out, or whatever the heck they've got going on. They can refresh that content and put those ads on. In a matter of minutes, I could upload any good content and get it on there. And I think that's going to be the new thing for businesses for 2016. I think they really should be looking at it because you said it right on the head. Is if it's just a PowerPoint that comes up and they forget to take it down, it needs to be something that needs to be managed, and it needs to be something that draws the interest of the viewer. And it has to have some kind of video content, some kind of video editing. But if you're looking into for jobs, I'm telling you, for jobs for 2016 or in the future, video editing, doing this kind of video content creation for lower thirds or for animations, any of that kind of Adobe, Photoshop, and all that's the key, because you can create those graphics, and if you know how to do it and do it cheap and sell it to guys like myself, to create a great intro for a show that's doing their own podcast. Say, hey Scott, I can crank this out to you for $300. That's going to look sharp. I have music in there, the whole 9 yards.
Oh, you got to talk to Carlos, the Lounge Network, who's in this. He's got ridiculous amounts of content and interview. Yeah. So definitely, if you see him on the top, click and follow him, because he's a great resource with regard to media and content.
Yeah, and that's a great thing.
Scott, I had a thought. So to the degree that you were able to, certainly organizations and groups like Hillsdale, you could argue easily have 24/7 content that could be generated. Maybe not 24/7, but for sure full-time content could be generated just with the whole wealth of topics that Hillsdale covers in its courseware. So you could almost argue that whether it's a college or a large business organization or federal agency, if they took a platform. Maybe the Blab's not it, but if they did if they created their own Hillsdale network, right? And you guys ran content 24/7, but then you took that content, in addition to putting it out live stream, you also then recycled that into your digital signage. You would then be putting your network impression on all those digital signage players, and you're natively keeping it relevant, right?
Yeah.
So, as a picture, like right now, doing digital signage, and you've got propaganda campaign, and then you've got a little window with CNN running to keep it fresh. But if you CNN and the Hillsdale TV network, that could be kind of.
Well, we can do that now. Like when we have events, I can take the software I use. I can take a YouTube, like if we're streaming to YouTube, I just have to paste or embed that code into the timeline where I want it to pop up, and I can even schedule it to come like if we're going to do a live talk at 4:00 on a Wednesday night, I can embed that code, and for that timeline or that campaign will change to that timeline and say, okay, we're going to run this YouTube video where I already have the address already known, and it'll kick right over to that, and it'll show right on the monitors. I can even do a picture-in-picture. I can have it, just cropped out to what I want to see, and then still have content coming down the other side of, maybe a chat room or whatever else. I can do that, and it's very versatile software. And just like you said, this is something that you can do anywhere, and the content is constantly being created, and it can be done all over the place, even in bars, restaurants. And I think this is the new medium for anything is anybody can be a broadcaster. Anybody that has the drive, I mean, if they find something that's relevant or important to others to watch, I do see a 2016 haircut for you, Rob. So Cliff posted, but the nice thing is that anybody that's really got a great story to tell, or maybe has a great idea, can become. I was watching a young lady a little while ago. Was on another chat room, and I can't remember where it was, but she said she'd like to start her own talk show about cleaning and stuff, and which is a great topic. But she's like, I like to talk about top 10 things to do to keep your house clean or do. And I said, well, maybe you want to give top 10, maybe just a couple and address them and that type of thing. But she also said she liked to cook. Now, that's one thing that hasn't been done on Blab here.
It has.
I haven't seen it. And I think that would be a great thing for persons like myself. That, I mean, I love to cook myself, but you'd like to see. You'd have to set up your system in the kitchen, but you could have a great hour show of just, hey, here's helpful hints in the kitchen of how to make a simple meal for those on the go and still feed your family of 4.
I think the one lesson learned that I've seen, and Bill and I talked about this earlier in the week, is there's been tons of things that have come and gone, and I've only been on Blab for maybe I'm approaching 70 days, and Carlos and Bill have been on for quite a bit.
127.
Yeah, 127. But the number one thing is to show up, because a lot of these ideas, and what I mean by that is and I kind of even did this myself, is you come into Blab as a newbie and you get so excited. You're like, because you all of a sudden see how quickly you can get to know people. I mean, when it's eyeball to eyeball contact, the time it takes for you to get comfortable and open and engaged with your audience and the people that you're collaborating with is quick. And people, I don't think, are used to that, because most people that don't come from the video conferencing world are used to, I'll send you an email, then I'll read it, or then you'll read it, then you'll send me back. So the transfer of information, relatively speaking, is pretty slow. But then you get on Blab, and all of a sudden you're blown away with how fast knowledge can get transferred among people, among strangers, more specifically. And you're like, oh my God. So point is you come into Blab, you get all excited, you have all these great ideas. I want to do a show of this. And then 3 to 4 weeks later, you're like, oh God, I'm so sick of Blab. I gotta step away. But I see it all the time. People come in with the best of intentions and all the enthusiasm, and then they burn themselves out.
I don't want to do a 7-day-a-week show. I'm looking at just probably 1 day a week, and I'll jump in and out, kind of like take over Bill's show like I'm doing right now. Just kidding.
That's normal though. What you just said is, in podcasting, you want to do 1 day a week and on the weekends, and you can do it as a hobbyist and build and see if you like it. And that's good to do. But I'm trying to do it because I'm trying to say, is there a way to make a living? And all I have to do is make $5,000 a month. And I'm just trying to figure this out. And plus, I've been podcasting for a couple of years, and it fits right into podcasting.
I think, Bill, if I'm talking about the technology and that type of thing, I think if you were to make money at doing this and doing podcasting and doing what you love, I think if you were able to, we were testing some stuff on vMix with vMix, but with another group that I watch. Mm-hmm. And we were actually doing it with IP cameras, taking, and I'm looking at this myself, be able to take an IP camera from like a church or from a city council meeting or whatever, and you could actually sit at your house and manage that video stream load the tweets, the whole 9 yards from your home with a very low latency and control the cameras and everything. So I think that you can make money with it. You just have to do it a little different way.
Believe it or not, I'm with you on this because I volunteered for a nonprofit group and I've been videoing them and trying to train up people. And so, look, bottom line is they're making good money. You have to buy a little bit of equipment to empower your employees because they always want to use my equipment. But you're right. I think that's the solution, is become a trainer to train people. Every church could do this. I mean, look at all the people who can't go to church. You could catch it live from church. Mm-hmm. And every church can do this. Every nonprofit could do this. Every board meeting can do this. Every small school could do this, could have every class online. Let's say you don't want to go to school or can't make it to class. Your class is online, live. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the new thing, is for new tech, for a blabber or for a YouTuber, or it really is becoming better equipment, better newer technology that are out there, and understanding. I mean, like I said, I watched a lot of video before I even started going online, and this is all, and I came out, I'm one of those people that I like it to look sharp. I don't want to go on there and people go, well, he's USAV Pros and he looks like a joke. He's got, he's got a green screen behind him, or I've got a crappy wall behind me, or whatever it is. And, not that I have a problem, because like I said, it's blab, people come do with what they want. We understand that there's different, this is a chat room of people all over the country and all over the world that just want to chat and share ideas. But, for my tech show, when I do my tech show, I wanted it to look right. Now, do I have to have the green screen behind me on Blab? No, I could just have a regular sit anywhere. But for myself, for me doing my own show, that I want to update people, especially on how to program that remote control that you've been having trouble with, for your 60-year-old father that doesn't know how to use it. I could create that video, and not only create that video, but once we have those followers and we send those tweets out, or we send it on Facebook, then people can tune into that episode that they're familiar with, or follow it up later on a YouTube video that we have.
Like Delgado up in Canada.
Yeah, and then once you get to a certain amount of followers, then you start to get monetization from ads running on your clips or whatever else. Or you don't have to monetize. You can just stay on your own and maybe find monetization yourself. Say, hey, look, Subway, I want to have your guys' commercial run. It's not that hard to get people to spend money with, because it's a lot cheaper to spend money with you than it is to spend money with a national network. And if you've got, a couple of guys I follow that do DJing, talk about DJ equipment and the new technology out there. Heck, one of them's got 35, 40,000 followers. So you got 35,000 people that are interested in what you have to say about this particular piece, good or bad. Hey, look, Subway, I got 35,000 people that'll follow me. So it's going to be going out. Once you spend $1,000 with me, and I give, I do, 15 shows a month, 20 shows a month, and you can get 5 or 6 or 7 of that. Hey, we're going to go to commercial break right now, guys. When we come back, we're going to be bringing on Bill Conrad and Rob Hicks, and we're going to be talking about such and such, so stay tuned. And you can go to that commercial break and show your vendors. And it's a whole new way of thinking, So now you could get 5 vendors and cover your whole show costs for the entire month, So $5,000 is a lot cheaper than several million that they spend on these things. But if you can get 1 million followers and start growing, that's where the real numbers come in.
Let me tell you, I monetize, and it's just laziness not doing it. At least on your websites, you have your affiliate accounts. I experimented initially with helping other podcasters or other business people, trying to at least get familiarized with WordPress. So I created a little course, and I went out and taught 7 people one-on-one, and I had a whole process. That's that New Media Gold, and that's too time consuming, and it's too one-on-one. Then I said, well, now I'm working on a course to try to just create courses in digital products. So you market those digital products, how to do something. So that's some ways of monetize, but there's other ways to monetize too. You can write an ebook, go out and speak, for a small amount of money as you evolve. You can, if you have more than 3,000 downloads on iTunes, you can get a pretty good bit of money for advertising and commercials. And I've just now been practicing creating commercials. I've created probably 10 commercials, about 5. And then finally is monetizing your own business, just like you teach. If you have a restaurant or real estate company or whatever it might be. My wife has a small real estate brokerage in California, and then here she works for a bigger company. but it used to be bigger. But so what I've done is I've set up a relocation process and formalized it, and then I'll make a separate web page for that, or website for that site, and then advertise it on the throughout iTunes, and get little, even if you get it out to just your family. I have a big family, and they start using that service. That's enough to make a pretty good living. It's a referral agency for real estate agents. So there's a lot of ways to monetize things. You just have to be creative and think about it and work at it and learn. But what we're doing right now isn't very difficult to do a blab, but to create a podcast, that's a lot more work. And to create a decent website landing page, and to create a captured email, that's getting tougher. That takes some work. So what do you do about those folks who need those platforms?
Well, I do my own
refresh
website.
Real fast. That's one thing great about WordPress is you can become a blogger in a day. But to go out and make membership sites and secure sockets and things like that, it takes a little bit of work.
Well, like I said, I do my own. I have a friend of mine who helps me out, and I'll bring up my site here in a second here. But let me grab that off the desktop. So we have our website here at US.
I saw that's a good site.
And we have our next live stream, which if you click to the live stream, it's going to bring you to, it's a YouTube chat. And we have just our stuff. So, and we kept this really simple. I kept on different things that we do. And then I still get involved with. Now, the nice thing is I do have a full-time job. So I'm not doing all this as a full-time job anymore. It's more of a hobby to me. But if
I call it a side hustle.
Yeah, if somebody calls me and says, "Hey, Scott, I would like you to DJ this event, or I would like to record this, or I want us to do a sound job," I know enough people in the business. If I can't do it, I can refer it off to them, and still they'll give me a little bit of a commission. And I know they're good quality people because I've worked with them in the past or used their equipment or whatever. But then we have my store, this is what I'm trying to monetize, which is my DJ equipment, lighting, DJ equipment.
Mm-hmm. That's
we
really
sell
good.
all the stuff there, and that's what we're trying to really push. And that's what the blab is for. Not really the blab, but that's what my other YouTube videos are for. More of a helpful informational channel, so that way I can sell this stuff and not really have to do anything for it. Like that website there that I pay for my e-commerce is I pay $10 a month. And I can have up to 100 items, which I have close to 4,000, which we're adding slowly, and we're still putting it together. But if you sign up as a member from me, we give you extra discounts, and we can set that all in there. And so it's kind of something we're playing with. The software is key because I don't have time in my day to spend hours. I know the product. I use the product. I mean, I've got a shelf right behind me with a ton of this product on it that I use for events. But I don't have time in my day because I get home, I work, get up at 6 in the morning, get to work start my day at 7:30, and I get home at 4:30, 5 o'clock to work another 8-hour day. So what I want to do is the software has to do the work for me. And that's another big one. Do your research, and especially if you're going to do an e-commerce site, do your research. The one I use is Volusion, and I found that they're a very helpful software. I mean, it's a really click and drag, and I've made a great looking website, very basic, very to the point, for really $10. It's just my time of inserting. It's a lot of insertion, a lot of pictures, a lot of videos. Like if you click on any of my stuff, if you were to click on the video wall here, we not only tell about the wall, but we also can click on the features of it. We have a video. We have tech specs in there. We have different things that you can download the cut sheet. So we're able to really tailor this thing and get it to the way we wanted to get it. So that's, for me, that's how I
go
do
ahead
it.
and drop in the link to your website down below, so it's in the notes.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll do that. But
to
yeah,
me, that's real important when we're talking and learning, because I have some test pages too, and I've got one that's ublabcast.com, which is a capture page. So I can go back and get this episode anytime. Well, it's going a lot. Plus, you're live right now, and you're live in the Republican Insight of Northern Nevada. You don't pull it up because it'll get a reverb, but I stuck that in there. I build their site, and I've been trying to get them into more social media, and it's on right now. If somebody stumbles into the site, they'll be listening.
No, that's no problem. I have no problem with the Republican men's website. That's fine. I work at the Republicans College.
So. That's one of my clients, and they actually get quite a few views, and they outdo the party sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, that's what I think that's for. People buy more on the internet. For new tech for 2016, I think more people are looking to the internet. I see speeds getting to be greater, fiber. So if you're going to be looking for new tech for 2016, I think it's going to be cameras. It's going to be video software to do these blab chats or to create different effects. And I see, really computers driving the gaming kind of style computers and capture cards really driving the industry now, because that's something new. And if you can stay ahead of the curve in it, you can make a lot of money in this business, and you can start to uptrain people.
Yeah, I was gonna say you say you can make a lot of money, but the probability of making a lot of money is not huge. You got to work at it.
You're going to have to work at it, and that's the thing. Is just like I said. I mean, I'm not looking at Blab to make me any money. What I'm looking at Blab to do is to get me visibility, and people know what I do, and go, okay, hey Scott, I can rely. Regardless if they buy anything from me or not, they can say, hey Scott, I did a Blab last Wednesday because we had a storm come through and knocked out our cable, so I lost my internet. So we did it on Wednesday instead of Tuesday, and we talked about LCD, LED versus projection. First is what the difference is between LCD and LED. Well, basically they're the same thing, but these are the light engines. We kind of talked about what was behind them and why they were different. Then we talked about projectors, and a young lady had asked me what kind of a good basic home theater projector would you get to start a small theater room. So I took that, and we gave them some information. I even brought up some websites, and as you can see, I can do things pretty quickly on my site, and because of the way I'm set up. And I was able to bring up to her several solutions. I said, okay, look at this, and here's the price list, and here's why I wouldn't choose this one. It might be $350, but this is all it's going to do for you. But if you go to this level here, it's like $600, but it gives you this much wider variety of choices to choose from. The contrast ratio might do 720, might do 1080. And what is she trying to do with it? Is she trying to do 3D? I mean, how commercial is this? Like going to be in a living room or like a spare bedroom, or what are they trying to do with it? If they're trying to keep the cost, I can give you a number of choices for up to $1,500. There's a ton of them out there, but what are you trying to do? And Monty is asking a question: could technology make us more stupid? Yes and no. And I am a firm believer that yes, the millenniums right now are unfortunately using technology, I think, in the wrong way. They give too much information about what they do every day. This is my biggest problem with Facebook and a few other, like Snapchat. They tell me everything that they're doing all day long. I don't care that you're eating a Subway sandwich at 12:15 and they put a pickle on the top of it. I don't care.
Yeah, you become numb to the dialogue.
Right. It's not important. It's not pertinent information. I think that the technology, I don't think I think if it's used correctly, it can be a great help to us. Just like this show is right now. I mean, we went from talking politics, which I knew very little about how to even get started into politics, which is great to learn, and from Bill. And now we're talking technology, which can be helping us. And I think that this is one of those things that could be a great platform, is to talk about, to educate people that don't understand. I'm not a big understander of Twitter. I'm just kind of learning Twitter, but I'm learning it because of here.
Let's give you a class real fast.
Okay.
Twitter. No, do you know what you can do with Twitter on this platform? Go up to one of the people up above, because you're new and you won't have been following them.
Right.
Go ahead and hit the Twitter bird.
The Twitter bird?
Yeah, just hit the Twitter bird. Go up and hit their name and hit the Twitter bird.
All right. I'm going to hit the Twitter bird.
And then go follow.
Okay.
So now you're finding people who've already seen your face and know you and probably follow you back. What happened to Rob?
Follow. Where do I click follow?
I'm just saying, when you're talking, go to follow. Let me show you another trick up there too.
I just followed the real TLN. I like his scream this with the Walking Dead there. I like that.
Twitter is a powerful platform. Now, there's two theories. You want to either follow back on Blab. I follow back everybody on Blab. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't follow me back. Some do. And I don't unfollow them. I should, because it's a new platform. But some people said you should only follow those you really want to follow and then get notifications on them. But that limits you, because I just, there's pros and cons. I might do that someday, but I'm just following folks right now. I got a theory. When you unfollow somebody who follows you, it's sort of a courtesy back and forth. But that said, if you go a couple more lessons, and we'll finish up on the lesson, because I think I want to show you, because I know you just started. I think I was the first person who actually followed you on Twitter.
Yeah, it was.
I think it was. So, and Twitter's powerful. I'm trying to convince other people. I'm a little older, and at my age, trying to convince them of what you can do at Twitter. So you just follow back, and you can see if now go under Rob Hicks or anybody, and hit Rob Hicks's name underneath his name.
Yeah, I think I did. Let's see.
And just go under his name, and don't just go under his name, and then hit the words right underneath his name.
Hit the words. Okay.
For example, Rob Hicks, hit Rob Hicks and click it once, and then look at it. It brings them to his Blab page, and then move your cursor over Rob's face down the middle left-hand corner, and you'll see how many days he's been on Blab.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been on 126, I think. So those are two lessons right here. But what I would do now is anyone that comes up on your site, they look halfway decent, unless they're crazy, or just everyone on Blab isn't a robot, and they're almost all good to follow.
Right.
And I got pretty thick skin too, so people don't bother me too much.
Right. Yeah, no, it's fine. And like I said, and I'm learning this, and it's great. It's great to know. I'm always trying to find new avenues. Like I said, this I think is going to be a great new avenue because I'm new. I'm new at, like I said, I've done a lot of, when I came into this industry, before I came to the college, I did basically everything that could be done with sound and lighting and video after it's been produced. And don't get me wrong. I've done my share. Let me show my screensaver here on mine. I've got a rig that I used to do when I used to do concerts. I get my, help if I use the right mouse here. But we did stages, and it's one of my stages, and we were setting up for a country concert. But it's kind of hard to see with all this crap behind it. But anywho, we used to do concerts and shows, and that's where I got my start. And then I kind of transferred into the home theater market and custom audio and video and automation. And so most of it self-taught. Then I went to schools for it. Then I went to classes for it. Because there was really there wasn't really any college. I'd not say there wasn't any college for it, but it was such a new market as it was growing. So I'm kind of one of the baby boomers when home theater started actually becoming popular, when the speakers started going in wall instead of mounting them outside the walls. And Xantech was, they're making, you just look at Xantech stuff now, they're kind of considered obsolete because of the new stuff that's out there. But, that's when I started. It was all that new technology, and IR repeaters. And I didn't know what the heck is an IR repeater. What are we doing? Why does it need to repeat? And now the HDMI ballums or the ballums, just to be safe, you can transmit anything. And I tell anybody building houses nowadays, Cat 5 is what you want to go, Cat 5 or Cat 6. Depends.
It's been a long time. I built houses.
Yeah, and Cat 6 is, I tell everybody, pull a couple RG6s and everything else, make it Cat 6 or Cat 5.
I want to ask you a question. That was 10 years ago we were doing that. I ran before that. I did some commercial. We ran a lot of wire, and sometimes I'd run it with my son. We had guys who contracted wire too, could run a lot faster. Well, in my own office, I did the TIs with my son. It was a beautiful office, and it was an old building. I had more wire than that you could shake a hat at. And I had a Microsoft, I had a Exchange server and my phone systems. It was really, really, really nice. Plus, our main employee, our office processor's husband was a telephone guy. So he'd come in and work with us. I'd pay him to work on the side. And I love that. But, my question is, if I built my own house again today, right now, and I built a few, I'd run wire all over the place. But the question is, do you really need it anymore?
Do you need the Cat 5 and everything? The wireless routers? Router.
Yeah, that's what we're working on right now.
Well, yeah. I mean, I use wireless routers for everything. I mean, half my house is run off wireless.
It's not as important as it used to be. Cat 6 and Cat 5. But Cat 6 is a lot more expensive.
I mean, Cat 6 is, I mean, you're talking pennies when you're talking bulk. I mean, if you buy it from Home Depot and stuff like that, you know, you're going to be spending a ton of money for Cat 5 and Cat 6. They're going to charge to the wazoo. But if you buy from, you know, a lot of these vendors will still sell to the public, and you just have to pay a little bit more. But you can do, Wi-Fi is becoming huge, and like I say, she just mentioned that you can run running their lights from Wi-Fi now, controlling your lights, and it's great. It's becoming Wi-Fi, but the problem with Wi-Fi is what you've got to do is you've got to get a good router.
Mm-hmm. To be able to there's good routers.
Because if you don't have a good router, you're not going to be happy with it, and you're going to have a lot of problems because there's only so much bandwidth they're going to be able to use. So I'm using the router I'm using is a Netgear Nighthawk 7500. I can't remember what the darn number is of it.
But just go up online and check the ratings and get a good router. I mean,
yeah, you want to get a good router, and you want to get something. You want to double check what you're getting. So
where it's placed in the house.
And somebody's also talking about dirty electricity, which is also another thing that is it's another thing that you've got to be aware of, especially in any audio file now. You want to have clean power coming through because everything's going to come through. And what they're talking about dirty electricity is they're talking about the electricity coming off the pole to the house. It's going to fluctuate. It's going to have some days you're going to be 126 volts, or it's going to be 118, or instead of a constant 120, and you're going to have some wrong emissions in there. So what the cleaning it up, Monster has done it. Panamax has now done it. They're inserting these clean power chips that keep the power consistently steady at the same out, so you don't get a lot of hiss or a lot of background noise or any of these other sound issues that you're going to have, or video issues. It's going to because it's going to be a fluctuation in power.
Hey Scott, I want to go back and look at this question for a second, maybe talk another 10 minutes, and then I have a show tonight. It's nice. I have no editing to do on iTunes, which is nice. For me, no editing this afternoon, which I hate editing. I don't hate editing. It just takes time. It just fills up a lot of time. The reason I don't like editing is because it takes time, a lot of time. So could technology actually be making us stupid? I'm going to answer that question.
Yeah.
Now, do you think about that logically? The benefits far outweigh the negatives, I'm convinced. Right now, we can do medicine remotely. We can do what we're doing now. We can think faster. Even when spreadsheets came in, I could do calculations. On Chief Architect, I can draw a house in a day. I've started plans in a small house, engineered them, and had them out the door at night, one day. And those are valuable plans. A 3,000 square foot house used to go for $10,000 to be designed and built. Just the plans and the engineering. So I can do a 2,000 square foot house in a day and a half with one draftsman and myself working on it about 6 hours of that day. My wife and I drew our own house in one evening and finished it up the next day. It's a small house. But so I've sped up the curve to make things more affordable, efficient, better designs. I can do energy calculation standards, efficiencies, figure out really, I can think out of the box. I can do calculations that would take weeks, I can do in a matter of minutes. So it's speeding up our ability to get things done and process stuff. And then I can go, here's the best part of it. Online learning, lynda.com, or any online learning platform.
Yep.
It's better and better at designing better systems to learn online that can even be better than a classroom. Now, I think you need both, but your homework assignment might be to go back and do this online course, come back and talk about it in the classroom. And so I think this medium, there are some negatives, and the other thing I'm going to say too is, one of the groups I support is that Republica Men's Club, and it's an older group, and they're fairly old, and they bring in really good speakers, though. And then I have a group of folks from Silicon Valley. We're at Lake Tahoe and Reno, and they're about 10 or 15 years behind technology. So they get together. And one thing that I hear from them, not all of them, but a handful of them, because they don't know the technology, they're scared of technology. They use that kids are stupid because they're using this stuff. In reality, they're the stupid ones because I don't have to memorize everything. I can look stuff up, and I've learned how to validate stuff too. I ran research teams for 2 years with PhDs, and I can validate that information, and find it so much faster and be more accurate with that information. Believe it or not, Wikipedia ran Britannica out of business, and the bottom line is Wikipedia was proven to be more accurate than Britannica, encyclopedias. You know that from the university, right?
Yeah.
And that's where you start. You start your research on Wiki, you use their references, and you dig in to use traditional references. You don't use Wiki as a reference. You just use that as a research element.
Research element. And that's the thing, isn't it? And going back into what this original discussion was about was politics. There is even before I came onto your show, I was researching and watching clips, and you can look at all the information that's given to the media, and you can take in those bits of information and get them any way you want, and do a bunch of research that you couldn't do before, and learn about the candidates in a whole new light that weren't there before. I mean, when George Bush was running or Ronald Reagan was running, I mean, you didn't have this kind of information. You went off of Ronald Reagan. He was a TV actor, and you trusted him. You liked what he said, and I believe Ronald was a great president. I really thought he was a great president. So, but you went off of, what you knew about them, which was created through the media. You couldn't find anything else out online. An everyday blogger could now create the content and give you information that maybe really knows a little bit more, or can follow him a little bit better, or you can get some more details. So you're not taking just one view of it, you're getting 40 views. So does it make it stupid? No, I don't believe it does. I mean, I think if it's used in the wrong hands, in the wrong context, yes. If people are just sitting around playing video games all day and not wanting to contribute to society, that's a different scenario. But not to saying that my kids do it too, and it frustrates me all of the the ends of the world. But it's just the way that's a cycle that they're going to have to go through, and then eventually they'll find their path, hopefully, and move on and do great things, and maybe learn some stuff and teach us some stuff that we didn't know about before, which is.
Well, my kids aren't on this platform. Notice it's people our age.
Yeah,
recycle.
Exactly.
Recycle one more time. I want to 5 more minutes. Go recycle. You're breaking up again. I've been on, folks. I've been on Blab. I think 127, 126 days. All I'm using is a 920 in either a Macintosh platform, but iMac. I'll tell you what, I've seen the Chromebook do just as well as this iMac. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. The Chromebook, there you go.
There you go.
You brought yourself back in because you're a host, so I didn't have to do it.
Yep.
Why does your system do that? You got to figure that out.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at that. I don't know if it's the kids online. I'm gonna have to play with that because I only notice it on Blab. I don't notice it anywhere else. It's just on Blab. I don't know if maybe I have to change my resolution rates. Maybe that's what it is. My transmission rates coming out of my vMix. I'm using a broadband cable. I think it's about 60 up, 5 up max, 60 down. And my kids are streaming right now. And I'm using a wireless router. It's right down below me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what I'm using. I'm using Comcast, Xfinity.
Yeah, Comcast or whatever it is.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe my audio delay. I don't know. I have to look at my external features because I'm streaming out an external so you can see the background and everything. Otherwise, you would see just a camera. Yeah. But I'm sending it out in NTSC 29.9. And
by the way, as a council member, my first mayor's son worked for the local cable company.
Yeah.
And with a passion, I didn't like the cable company.
Yeah, I know. I'm not a big fan of cable company. I have enough issues with them, but
the marketing tactics.
Yeah, so I think that the technology is getting faster. Fiber is starting to make it to homes now. There's a lot of fiber companies. Well, there's a fiber company that's in town now that they're starting to. They just made the deal with the city council here to provide fiber throughout the community, which is starting to pick up ground, but it's still pricey and it's not to all houses yet. So even though I live in town, I'm just down one of the streets that they haven't went to yet, which I'm waiting to see that get here. because I'm a big fiber fan of the transmission speeds and the clarity of it. So it'll be interesting once we see what happens with it.
Yeah, we have a big company called Switch here. Switch, ever heard of Switch?
No, I haven't heard of Switch.
They have, I forgot how big their building is, but they build all the switch systems for all this new optical systems going in everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I was in Omaha, Nebraska when they put the test system in for Google, part of it, when it wasn't anything what it is now. But in Kansas City, I heard it's amazing. It's 1,000 up, 1,000 down.
Huh. Yeah, that's what they're supposed to, that's what they're pushing here. They're saying it's supposed to be 1,000 up, 1,000 down. I'm pushing like 700 right now.
You're pushing 700.
Mm-hmm.
Where?
Yeah. Through no, I'm sorry, not 700, 600 through Comcast. They got the 60. I'm sorry. I want to say 600.
We're talking 1,000.
Yeah, 1,000. Yeah, we're talking like
1,000. You're pushing 60 down and maybe
60 down
up.
to 5 up, right?
But that's going to go asymmetric. Now I work with asymmetric at the Atlantis Casino, and it's only 3 up, 3 down, and I get great streaming video because it's asymmetric, 3 up, 3 down, and it's constant, and I get great sound and a good picture.
Yeah, and that's the thing is you know, I'm still learning because I'm not a big computer guy. I'm still learning the whole thing, and I'm more of a and Rob's like Rob is more of an AV guy. So the whole streaming thing, I understand the principles of where we're at, you know, and the 1 gig up and 1 gig transmission and all that stuff, and understanding computers a little bit more. But like I said, I'm doing mostly of my stuff. I'm just starting to get really into fiber transmissions and the difference between multi-mode and single mode, because it is really pushing the limits. And the college was wired in multi-mode, and we just rewired it in single mode over the last few years. But yeah, fiber HDMI, yeah, I'm definitely looking, and that's why my processor I'm looking at when I was making my decision on going SDI or HDMI, I stuck to HDMI input capture card. Because if I do a basketball game or I'm out to another event that I want to film, I can push my signal easier over fiber. So I'm going to go to out of my cameras right to a fiber BALM and transmit over a Blackmagic back to my computer.
Let me read what's going in my backyard here. There's 2 sides of Reno. I live in the mountainside, beautiful mountains, Sierra, 5,000 feet. The other side of the valley turns into desert, and that's where the biggest industrial plant is. And I just dropped in Switch, the world's largest data center. The SuperNap Tahoe Reno Industrial Campus, measuring 6.5 million square feet once we'll build it. Anyway, it goes on. The building is huge. I forgot how big the building is, Switch. So we're building something called Switch. It's huge. There's a picture of the building down there. It's huge, and it's the biggest data center in the world. Right in my backyard. That's
a big one. This person just asked if dirty electricity is harmful to people. I've never heard of dirty electricity being harmful to people, unless it's maybe on you're on a life support system. But other than that, it's usually just control. It has to deal with to products. Yes, it is. It is. I'm sorry. Yeah, it is definitely bad for products. Yes, it is harmful for products. It will wear out the use of them a lot faster. Yep. So, but yeah, that is definitely a one that it is harmful to equipment. It'll start wearing out the motors. It'll start wearing out the electronics on the inside of the circuit boards because of that influctuation of the AC, your phases, you know, from the top of the phase, the bottom phase, all that fun stuff about AC and Mr. Tesla that is provided to us. But yes, it is harmful to equipment.
Well, anyway, I'm going to cut out. I'm going to be back tonight at 6 o'clock on Meet the Voter. Scott, come on up on Meet the Voter. What we're going to do is go 3 levels. I've really got a good mix of people. I've got Bernie Sanders supporters. I go to the right side, but I try to stay as neutral as possible. I moderate it. Jonathan comes on it, and a few other folks come on. So, interesting discussion. We didn't really figure out how to get rich, though. Here, regardless of my backyard.
Well, we could get rich if everybody in the chat room just sends us $1,000 each, and then we can get rich that way.
Yeah. Well,
that should be a good thing.
The way I could have got rich is just sticking what I was doing. I was making really good money, but I was gone a lot. I was overseas, and
yeah,
and I don't want to do that anymore.
I know, that's why I took this job. I wanted to kind of stop traveling so much, but Bill, thanks for having me on. I apologize. I took over your show here. I don't know what that was all about.
It was a training show. It was a fun show. So
yeah, I thought I was just going to be on here for a half an hour, 45 minutes, and 4 hours later, I'm still here. So
I might try. Might try to call Rob next if he's still listening and do a Zoom real fast. I got some ideas. I want to run past him.
All right, Bill.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Remember, I'm looking forward to your university. They're starting to get more active in this. I might go to UNR and talk to them.
Yeah, we're gonna have to have a little chat with them. I'll talk to.
Well, no university has done it yet, right? As far as I know.
No, I don't think so. Not that I know of. I think one of the problems is they're worried about crashing the platform if they couldn't handle it. So.
Yeah, who the here?
Yeah, crashing
the lab. It's a good problem to have.
well, the problem is they crash it, then nobody will want to do it again. So I think Rob made that mention, which is a good idea. A good thing. You don't want to crash it before it really gets built up.
Yeah, but I still think they think they'd be happy. I don't know what they're doing, but I think they'd be happy to get a big university going on it.
Yeah, I think they would too. This is a good thing. So, all right, Bill. Thanks everybody in the chat room.
Wave, you gotta wave goodbye. There's a trick to this. Fall back.
I'll pull back, and do I have to do fade
at the same time?
Okay, I can fade to black.